We're good?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Peter Boghossian.
Hello.
How
Thanks
are
for
you, buddy?
having me.
Thanks for doing it. Appreciate
I'm
it,
doing
man.
really good.
I think I found out about you through Sam Harris. I'm not sure, but you're also friends with my friend Rory Singer.
Oh, Rory's a great guy.
Great guy. And he got excited when he found out that you were coming on. Rory, of course, martial artist, former UFC fighter.
Right.
And
He's tapped me many times.
I'm sure he tapped me many times too. So you work at University of Portland State?
Portland State, yeah. Work at Portland State, teach philosophy there.
And you're also a guy who is you're described as an atheism advocate. Like not just an atheist, but someone who actively promotes, hey, you should probably try this.
I promote critical thinking and reason and rationality, and I
And
think,
the two go together?
yeah, and I think that naturally leads to atheism if people are honest with themselves. And you mentioned Rory. I've been a long time martial artist, my whole life actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you start off with?
The fantasy-based martial arts, the bullshit.
Like which ones?
I did everything. I mean, I tried Kempo. I literally tried. If you were to put all of the martial arts together that don't work and put them in one suite, I tried them.
All of them.
Well,
Kempo's got some good striking techniques. They just don't have an overall comprehensive system to deal with grappling.
Yeah, I tried Jeet Kune Do. I tried Taekwondo. I tried Tai Chi. So I tried them all, and then I actually. One of my turning points was when Ron Van Cleef, who was in the original UFCs, early UFCs.
Yeah, he was in like UFC 3 or 4 or something
really
like that.
early on.
And he was like in his 50s.
Yeah, he was older.
He's
yeah.
still in very good shape. He like competed in a tournament, a karate tournament, I think deep into his 60s.
Yeah, I trained with Ron, and I trained with this guy, Shion Hector Santiago, who was quite something. And I trained with them for years in New York City. And when Ron Van Cleef got taken down and just
dominated,
I mean, that was a huge moment for me. That was then that started me on this whole other path. And then I trained with Greg Jackson from New Mexico.
Were you in New Mexico?
Yeah.
Were you living there? Or?
Well, I started in New York City before the UFCs came along, and I trained there, and then I trained in New Mexico. And now I train with Matt Thornton from Straight Blast, who's John Kavanaugh's coach, who's obviously Conor McGregor and Nelson's coach.
That's a great lineage, man. So you saw Ron Van Cleef get dominated by Hoist Gracie,
yeah,
like fairly easily. It was kind of interesting to watch, like a guy who is this
legend,
really well respected in the karate world,
total legend,
and just get smoked like a beginner.
Yeah, and I saw those guys. Like I saw Hector Santiago fight in real life, and he is a very dangerous person.
You saw him fight like in a street fight, or?
Yeah. So I used to live in the Lower East Side between A and B, and so all of this was just part of my experience, and I thought a lot of this stuff was real, and it just turned out to be fantasy. It just turned out to be make believe.
Well, I think that's an interesting parallel. When we were talking before the podcast, we were talking about critical thinking and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts in general. And there are a lot of people that have very distorted ideas of many things, not just of their ability to handle themselves physically, but just of the world in general. And I think martial arts sort of highlights a lot of that those critical thinking issues.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I was so excited to come on this podcast today, is because I think you're ideally situated to have that conversation with me, because jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu specifically, aliveness training against resisting opponents, we don't talk about. This is a huge area that nobody is talking about. We can understand all of reason and rationality through jiu-jitsu, through corrective mechanisms, through aligning your beliefs with reality. I mean, little things from, testing ideas yourself, not having to take it on faith. I was talking to his name eludes me now. I think that there's something, Chris Howder. I think he's a super good guy.
Great guy.
Yeah. There's something in the process. So you've been tapped thousands of times.
Sure, probably if I counted them all up.
Yeah, I've been tapped thousands of times. There's something about the type of person who would either, if you frame it in terms of subjecting yourself to that, there's something about that that's fundamentally differentiates us, if you will, from people in fantasy-based martial arts. It develops a kind of character, it develops a kind of attitude when you place yourself in situations and get tapped. It's a type of corrective mechanism. Jiu-jitsu is a corrective mechanism. It can help you align your beliefs with reality. And I'd love to explore that with you today.
Sure.
And talk about what that means.
Just in the case that some people might not know what that means, what we mean by tap is submit. When you do jiu-jitsu, like, I believe it or not, I've talked to, I just assume that people know what we're talking about, but I've talked to people who go, okay, what is jiu-jitsu? Like, what are you doing? What submission grappling, which is jiu-jitsu is one style of it, but it's all about using leverage and technique against joints or chokes, against arteries like chokeholds to cut off the blood to your brain, or neck cranks. And when you train jiu-jitsu as opposed to other martial arts, other than wrestling, which I consider a martial art, you can go full speed on that. You go 100%, and that's the difference between those martial arts and striking-based martial arts, where you really shouldn't go 100% because you only have so many punches your head can take before your body just stops working. That's just a fact. You could train sparring hard for a certain amount of years, but your mind is gonna turn into mush. There's just no doubt about it. We know that for a fact.
And people do jiu-jitsu into their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Anthony Bourdain didn't even start until he was 58, and he's obsessed. He trains every day. He goes sometimes twice a day. He'll take a private in the morning, and then he'll train in a group class after that. He's a maniac. But the difference being, like, you absolutely know what works and doesn't work, and you absolutely know how good people are. So if we rolled...
You can't fake it.
Yeah, if we rolled 20 times and you tapped me 18 of those 20 times, and if someone said, how good's Peter? I'm like, he taps me most of the time. Yeah. And then we know,
Right.
we
would
have
know
like
the
clear.
opposite in that case, but yeah.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We know. It's clear.
Yeah, and so you can't fake it. There's no pretending. There's no bullshit. There are no, bowing rituals and masters and all this nonsense. All of those structures, I think, are put in place to conceal the underlying paucity of the effectiveness of the techniques. And people come up with this. So the other thing about that I think is so important is that all of these combat-based martial arts, I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time. All of those combat-based martial arts, let's take a look at, you mentioned wrestling. We know it works. We know there are some things we just know that they work.
Right.
We know that kickboxing works. We also know that it's head trauma for kickboxing. We know that Muay Thai, which is, in my opinion, an insane activity, but we know that it works. We know that Western boxing works. We know that Jiu-Jitsu works. So the reason that we know we can test these things, we can take people, and hopefully later on we'll talk about the difference between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, right? Same techniques, different pedagogy, different training method. That's a $2 word for training method. We can take that, we can adjudicate these things because we take two people of equal weight and we stick them in a cage, and we have some very basic rules. And also, for your listeners who aren't familiar, MMA gloves are very thin. I think people who don't understand MMA, they think that they're kind of like boxing gloves. They're very, very thin gloves. They don't afford much protection at all.
They really let the person punch you harder, so they don't have to worry about breaking their hand. But as far as like cushion to your brain or your head,
they're not a cushioning.
Yeah.
So we can look, we can judge what works, and one of the ways that we do that is two people, same size, put them in a cage, and we see what works. The other thing is that when you train against a resisting opponent, and I think this is the key, you can figure out what's real. Like, that's a mechanism. It's a corrective mechanism. It's a way for you to discern make-believe land and reality. Bullshit, what works and what doesn't work. And once we start introducing that in systems, like, look, let's say that I said to you, hey, I've come up with this technique. I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's incredibly effective. And you say, what is it? And I say, it's a pinky blitzkrieg. I like to use it.
Okay.
And so I say this. You say,
you just come attacking with pinkies.
Yeah. I say, but it's a certain, stance, and I do this, and
right.
Come Bantus stance, whatever. And you say, really? And so you call up, unbeknownst to me, you call up, like, I heard a show, you're buddies with Eddie Bravo, right? Yeah, you call up and say, look, we got this guy in here. He says that he has this technique, pinky blitzkrieg. I'm going to send him over there, put them up against your good purple belt, get it on video, and we'll see what happens. So it's a way to test it. Now if that works, you'd be like, holy shit, like I can't, this is awesome. Like nobody ever thought of the Pinky Blitzkrieg. It's incredible. But what you've done there is that's a core component of critical thinking. It's a willingness to revise your beliefs. It may sound like bullshit, but you're completely open to the possibility if this works against a resisting opponent, right? So let's say that I tap out his purple belts, and he's like, all right, well, brown belt. At some point, it would be so absurd that you'd think that Eddie and I were in on it, right? I don't know the guy. I've never rolled with him, never met him. So you'd call someone else. And then you can test it. So you can watch it. Eventually you can test it with your friends. So this idea of testability, and people can figure out things for themselves. They don't have to go on the history of the tradition, or some guy punched a bull in the head, or there was a blind nun walking through this and she killed all these guys.
That's what we always had to deal with. That was the history of martial arts, was always Masoyama killed a bull with a punch. We always hear about Masoyama, who's this, was he Kyokushin, or I think he was Kyokushin, right? Is that his lineage?
I don't
remember. But he was a famous Japanese guy who apparently had killed a bull with a punch, which...
And then that comes down as legend. So when people are said, well, how do you know this works? Why should you do it? Well, this guy killed a bull. Well, did you see the bull? Did you see it? So it's a fable, and the fable takes on a life of its own. And the genius about the Ultimate Fighting Challenge was then you had a way to test ideas, right? You can literally watch these things unfold against people in the early ones, people of different weight classes. They had the sumo wrestler and the kickboxing guy. So, but not only that, it was an opportunity for you to figure out what was real.
Right.
And there's something that's incredibly appealing to that. Like, think about kata, right? What a fucking waste of time. Like, not only is it a waste of time in terms of, let's say what kata is. It's like a, you want to go?
Yeah, they're forms, and what a form is, it's like a pattern of movement that everyone does. You get one when you get your white belt, you practice that, you get really good at it, you do it for a test, you get your yellow belt. And in a lot of traditional martial arts, that is part of how you test.
Right.
I got my black belt in Taekwondo, and I had to remember all those goofy moves, and they never came into play ever when I competed. They were sort of nonsense. It was a waste of time.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did get my black belt, I forgot all of them. I mean, I barely remembered them.
It's a waste of time, but I'd argue it's even worse than a waste of time. If it were just a waste of time, then you could have been staring at a wall. But you thought that you were doing something to help you achieve a goal, and the goal was to win a fight. So you thought you were engaged in activity. There's no resisting opponent. So when there's no resisting opponent, it's not testable. You can't bring the tools of science to it, right? So you thought you were engaging in activity that brought you closer to your desired objectives, but it didn't.
Here's the argument against that, though. What it does do is it helps your precision movement. And you could argue that learning how to execute these patterns in a very beautiful way shows control, and it shows precision movement. The problem with it is that there's some of those movements that are completely ineffective, like double knife hand block or thrusts, knife hand thrusts. There's movements that they're not applicable to MMA.
Yeah.
But the concept behind it is actually something that a lot of really good mixed martial artists like Carlos Condit or even Conor McGregor are doing. They're doing a lot of like movement training. And although I don't think kata is the best way to achieve those kind of goals, I think that there's something to be said for not just martial arts techniques, but other things as well. Like yoga, I think, is extremely effective in enhancing your ability to control and manage your body in movements.
All right,
gives you weird strength.
So we're on the same page. So think about it. I'd offer a constructive way to think about it like this. So what you just said, I don't know anything about basketball, so I'm going to just use basketball as an example.
There's a ball and a net and black guys. And
that's
a big court.
So
tall people.
So
some white guys.
When you think about basketball, what you just described was a guy on a court practicing a layup over and over again. I think a layup is like when you bounce it and you shoot it.
You don't know the how dare you?
I don't know anything about basketball, so I'm not.
You run up to the
not a fan. You
the
run up,
net
you,
thing,
you know,
and you throw the ball in that hole, and everybody gets crazy.
Okay, but think about don't think about kata. So I think thinking about kata like a layup in terms of precision is the wrong way to look at it. Think about kata as a layup without a basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the practice of basketball, the practice, quote unquote, of basketball without a basketball.
Right. Okay, here's the problem with that. What about shadow boxing? Shadow boxing is extremely effective. And shadow boxing, in a sense, is a form of kata. Shadow boxing, and including not just boxing, but kicking and punching and kneeing, is a long accepted, excellent form of training and visualization.
Yeah, so one of the things that shadow boxing you can do is you can warm up with shadow boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I warm up in jits, and just to be upfront, I suck. I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm not very good.
What belt are you?
I love it, blue belt. So I'm not.
How long have you been doing it?
I'd tell you I'd be embarrassed.
Tell me.
Since 1999.
How dare you? How come you're still a blue belt? How often do you do it?
Well, only once a week if I'm lucky.
Oh, okay. Well, you got to go Anthony Bourdain style. You got to get obsessed.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of opportunities. Like I have a family that I
Right.
push forward. I have a work career, and I have.
How dare you have a life?
A life, yeah.
Fucking people with their lives.
Yeah, so I'm not speaking about it from any kind of like I'm an expert in this.
Right.
But,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting about this is the philosophical implications. And so like when I warm up, I like to warm up with another body to slow roll.
Mm-hmm.
I like to just. Because then I have an opponent. If you're practicing something over and over again, the problem with that is there's no corrective mechanism. You could be doing the technique incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you actually go to execute it, you've had a body memory for that technique that's taken you away from your goal.
Do you mean with striking? Do you mean shadow boxing?
Well, you used the example of shadow boxing.
Yeah. So you're saying with shadow boxing that you need another body in order for it to be effective?
No, I'm saying that so let's say that you shadow box a hammer punch. Right?
Okay, so stuff that doesn't work, like kata things, like double knife hands.
Yeah,
and
or
that kind
even
of stuff.
if you shadow box jabs and crosses and uppercuts and stuff, even if you do that, if you could not be doing it correctly, and then you'd be practicing the wrong thing over and over again.
Right.
And that will take you away from your goal. That's why you have to have some kind of a resisting opponent. Resisting opponents are the corrective mechanisms for everything. And just as they're the corrective mechanisms in the physical domain, they're the corrective mechanisms in the cognitive and intellectual domains as well. That's why prayer is so insidious. It's because people think that they're doing something that's in their own well-being. They're doing something that's good, but they're just talking to themselves.
Mm-hmm. But there is some aspects, and I would agree with you. I don't know if I don't like labels. I have a real hard time with labels, even labels for things that I think are good things. Like, I think that some people get a lot out of prayer, and not necessarily because they're praying to a non-existent deity, or they really truly believe that if they wish for a new car, it's going to come to them. But I think that the mind, when focused on positive thinking and focused on love and focused on the tenets of Christianity, like of godly behavior and compassion and all these different things, and you truly are looking out for your fellow man and wanting to be a good person, all those things. I think there is merit in that. I think you can certainly find benefit in that as a tool for mental management. I mean, does that mean there's a guy in the clouds with a harp and all that jazz? Of course not. But I think that it's, in a sense, like Tai Chi. I mean, if a guy thinks that he's going to take Tai Chi only and get into the UFC, it's hilarious. He's going to get fucked up. But if a guy in the UFC, like Conor McGregor, for instance, who's so concentrated on movement, really gets involved in Tai Chi, I think he would probably get at least some benefit out of it. Because in that slow moving, this like rhythmic pattern, what you're doing is you're exercising your body in an unusual way and expanding the possibilities of your interactions with opponents, expanding what your body can and can't do. And I think yoga does that. I think there's a lot of different things that do that.
So there are about 20 really interesting things that you just said. I think we need to kind of unpack those a little bit. Like, so if you talk about, so take a look at prayer and what people think that they're doing. And then this is why you're the perfect person to talk to this about. Then compare that to a martial art that's bullshit.
Right.
Like Tai Chi is a good example.
Okay.
So people think that they're going towards a certain end, winning fights. It's certainly, I don't know about now anymore, but certainly when
there's some people that teach Tai Chi and even practice Tai Chi that are just doing it for their health.
Yeah, my dad is one of those people. So he has zero ambitions to win a fight with anybody. He's in his late 70s. So if somebody says that, I have no problem with that at all. And I think it's true, and certainly motion would be better than non-motion. And the problem is exactly the same problem with religion when people are making objective claims. They're making claims about the nature of reality. And I want to know what's true. Mm-hmm. And we don't even, the problem is that people, every time you talk about faith or religion or what have you, people shut down or they have barriers. We don't need to talk about that. All we need to do is talk about jiu-jitsu. That's why this is so perfect. Because with jiu-jitsu, you can figure things out yourself. You can figure out what works, right? The pinky blitzkrieg. You can figure out what doesn't work. You can figure out what you're capable of. If I tap you, if you tap me out 20 times, I'm under no illusions that the 21st time, I mean, I could get lucky, like I could get lucky against Rory. I could get lucky against Matt Thornton. It's always possible. It's highly unlikely, but I could get lucky. Mm-hmm. The problem is that if you look at the way that people engage these rituals in their lives, what these people are doing is they think it's taking them towards an end. It's exactly identical to fantasy-based martial arts. Mm-hmm. They think it's taking them towards an end. It's not.
Right. I think also a parallel, like in fantasy-based martial arts, the benefits of it. Like I said, I did Taekwondo for a long time, and I got really good at it, and I competed a lot. And I was essentially in a cult. I mean, Taekwondo, although it's a beneficial cult and it helped me a lot, and it in a lot of ways it made me the person that I am today, because in training and doing really difficult things and competing and overcoming nerves and fear and all that stuff, there's a lot of benefit in it. But then I had a distorted perception of reality because of it. And that distorted perception of reality was shattered once I started boxing.
Exactly.
And I realized, like, oh my God, I was getting just punched in the face. I didn't know. I thought I knew how to fight when really I just knew how to do Taekwondo.
Right.
And then I had to learn all the other aspects of martial arts. Like one of the most sobering moments of my life was when I trained at Carlson Gracie's on Hawthorne in Hollywood in 1996. And this is before Vitor Belfort made his debut in the UFC. And I had this long, extensive history of competing in Taekwondo tournaments, and I had kickboxed, and I'd done quite a bit of boxing training, and I wrestled in high school. I thought I was a pretty good martial artist. And I just got fucking mauled. Yeah. Like I had never exercised, like I had no idea what I was doing, and I just remember the feeling of helplessness. And the guy a bunch of people mauled me, but one of the guys that mauled me, I'll never forget, is this Brazilian kid who was a purple belt, who was basically my size. He wasn't any bigger than me, and he wasn't like some super Mario Sperry black belt guy. Yeah. He was just some guy who just beat the fuck out of me. I mean, he almost disdainfully, and he was a nice guy, but I mean, when he was training really hard, and he didn't give me any slack. I was just getting wrecked. And I remember thinking, wow, what a stupid illusion I was under.
Yeah, and so in a sense, I think I guess that's a question we could talk about, but I don't know, is it incumbent upon us to help people out of these traditional martial arts? Like I had a very similar experience. I trained in stick and knife fighting for years. That's why my hands have all these cuts. Yeah, Screama. That's why my hands have all these cuts and are all mangled.
You train with real knives?
Real knives and sticks. Yeah, I did this stuff with the Dog Brothers, and Dan Medina was my coach for years. I got a black belt in stick and knife fighting, and
they give out black belts in stick and knife fighting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're in a place where the bullets are all gone and no one knows how to make a gun,
well, I mean,
bows and arrows haven't been invented.
That's where I was going to go with this. Where I was going to go with this is so I thought I was like you. I thought I was a pretty good martial artist.
Right.
And then I fought actually Greg Jackson with sticks, and just beat the shit out of me. And I mean, I had a stick, and I'd been training with a stick for like years at that point, and it was just a huge wake-up call for me.
You guys fought like in a competition?
We fought in like a fight, and he had only on
A fight? Like
Yeah.
you were mad at each other?
No, well, like a party's arm to the submission. I mean, we were like, I was not.
So it was a competition?
Well, no, it was at
just had met
at his old place, and this is when I started training with him. And I think we put on like very light hockey gear, and I was just going to beat the shit out of him. I was just going to, yeah. Well, that was my goal, because he said this was before I learned about aliveness training and resisting. See, that's
aliveness.
Yeah, so that's like Matt Thornton's meme, and it's a combination of. That's a whole other discussion. It's like timing energy in motion, resisting opponents, ways to figure out what's true and what works. And this gets back to our discussion about shadow boxing and about training other ways. I had trained with a stick, and I had learned all these basically these kata things, but I also trained against a willing opponent. Like when you watch these stick demos, the key to look for is what the UK does, the feeder. It's not what the guy does.
UK?
I think this is a Japanese word for like the guy who's feeding in. Like if
okay.
if I'm
So
gonna
the guy
go like
who's
this, I do this, and then
right.
I
The
go,
guy. Okay, people. Most of the people are listening to this. It's like probably 90%, even though a lot are watching it. So what you're demonstrating for those who are listening is like there's these drills that you do where someone will pretend to throw a punch,
Yes.
and the other person will step aside and do their counterattack.
and it looks awesome.
So the UK guy is a guy in Taekwondo we used to call it the one steps.
Yeah, the one steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of a fantasy-based martial arts because it makes you it brings you further from reality. It makes you think you can do something that you simply cannot do. So what you need to do in those circumstances is you need to watch the feeder, the person who's giving the reverse punch. It's like
Right.
a punch that comes off of your. I'm trying to be conscious of your
understand.
readers now. A punch that comes off of your ribs and goes out, and they almost never hit somebody. Like if you watch the Steven Seagal when he got his black belt, there's a famous black and white video that's out there. Jamie can link to it, I guess. It looks awesome, but it's bullshit. It's all choreographed.
Right, Aikido.
Yeah. So the key deliverable, I think, in this one of those in this conversation is that whether it's shadow boxing or whether it's kata or whether it's taking a knife and doing a drill. When I used to do those train with sticks, I was really, really good, but I always knew the angle. So it was fantasy based. If you took the angle out of it, I would just get beaten to death. I mean, someone
What do
would
you
kill
mean
me.
by angle?
So like in Derobio or Screamer, there are 12 angles. It goes 90 it goes like 75 degrees the other way, baseball swing, reverse baseball swing, stab, overhand stab, attack to the knees, attack to the other knees. So when you do those, when you train, you know, guys just do the numbers 1, 2, 3, and you get so good at it. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I can show you stuff here. It's like if I know the angle, it looks awesome.
Right. I've seen guys do it. It looks pretty badass.
But it's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's fantasy-based martial arts because the opponent isn't resisting.
Right.
You have to have a resisting opponent. But here's the deliverable for this conversation, I think, is that if you train in a certain way, absent a corrective mechanism, but you think that corrective mechanism is an actual corrective mechanism. In other words, you think you're training in a way that will bring you closer to reality, but you're becoming further from reality. What that does is that's devastating because you need that corrective mechanism. You need to bring your thoughts in alignment with reality. And that was the great thing about the UFCs is because now we have all these people and we can see what works.
Right.
So think about the guys, I listened to your show with Eddie Bravo, or I think, and he said, he was just practicing the rear naked on his leg. Well, that's not going to work because there's no corrective mechanism. Because
I don't think you understand what he's saying.
Maybe I wasn't.
He was exercising his squeeze on his leg. He still does it. And it's because one of the things about jiu-jitsu, about finishing a technique, is how hard can you squeeze, how long can you squeeze. So what Eddie does is he'll do this, like if we're watching TV together, he'll do it. He puts his knee up. If we're watching fights, he'll put his knee up like this, and he'll rear naked choke his own knee and just squeeze it. And what he's doing is he's working on his squeeze. And it's not thinking that that's going to make him get to that position where he can squeeze someone better. Well, or against a live resisting opponent, it's an exercise.
Okay, so that's cool. So if the idea then is that we'll work on your squeeze, then that's different from thinking that if I train, what if you practice? Think about like practicing shadow boxing, and to use your example, and your hook is always wide, or you stand here, and then when you get into a fight, you deal with a resisting opponent, and you do that. So you would have gone down a path to make you worse in the action.
But that's assuming that you're doing it incorrectly. If you train correctly and you learn the techniques correctly, and then you apply them in your shadow boxing correctly, it's going to benefit you.
Okay, so that's the question. The question is, and I mean, the great thing about this conversation is that we can test this stuff, right? I mean, this is the ultimate. We have people. So for that, we need to look at the only big word I think we need here today is pedagogy, like the training method. It's a big word for training method. We don't even need pedagogy, just say training method. So we look at the training method, and what I think you would need for that is, well, I guess here's my question to you. Would it be better in your mind to train shadow boxing or to do some light boxing with guys with focus mitt over there, guys holding up focus mitts at the same speed that you were shadow boxing?
This is where I think the conversation is going awry. It's not that it's better. All those things have their merits. Shadow boxing has its merit. Yoga has its merit. Yoga is not going to teach you how to be a better fighter. But if you learn all the techniques of jiu-jitsu and you incorporate yoga into your training, it will likely elevate your jiu-jitsu.
I have absolutely no question that that's true.
And I think that goes along with shadow boxing, especially if you're a striker. If you're a striker and you don't shadow box, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think there is a benefit to visualization and to movement, and to there's things that happen when you throw combinations in the air, as far as your dexterity, especially with kicking, and your ability to even do combinations without any resistance or without anybody trying to counter you. There's benefit in stringing together those reps, those repetitions.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there is a benefit in that, and I think so. Sometimes if I go in to straight blast and there's nobody on the mat, there's nobody to roll with, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just go through the motions. Like I'll do rolls, or I'll go over my back shoulder, or I'll just fall down. There's merit to that, in that I think I already know how to do it. I mean, I'm sure that I could improve on it without any question at all. So like your example of yoga is a really good one. I think it's certainly true that you can use muscles in yoga that you don't in another activity. And I think that those have benefits to MMA. In fact, I'm sure they have benefits to a lot of other things. So
not just the flexibility aspect and the body maintenance. There's a lot of good things to it.
Yeah, I don't do it myself. I probably should, but if I would, I'd just spend that hour doing jiu-jitsu, to be blunt with you. But I think that you can get things out of yoga and get things out of these other activities, but you have to be conscious about the reason why you're doing these things. And the way to get better ultimately, so you could shadow box at a certain level. And again, I think we can think about it in terms of the layup example again. It's not necessarily the ball is the corrective mechanism with the layup. The person is the corrective mechanism in the fight. And as long as somebody knows what they're doing and they're training in a certain way, it's not necessarily that shadow boxing will take one away from one's goal if it's being practiced correctly. I think kata would take one away from one's goal. But I think that the whole project, like if you think about, and that's why I think the shadow boxing is such a good example of this. What is it that okay, so when someone shadow boxes, the point is to warm up. That accomplishes that. You could do that with squats too, right? If someone, or you could do that any whatever number of. You're looking at me like you're lost.
No, just listening.
Okay, we cool.
Yeah, we're fine. I'm just listening. That was all in your head, man.
Yeah, it's probably. I got that look like, what are you talking about?
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah, well, if you think I'm off track, let me know.
You might be a little off track, in that I think you think there's very little benefit in a lot of these activities that I think aren't primary activities. I think, yeah, if you wanted to break it down to what is the only... See, there's just this broad range of things you could do to improve all sorts of athletic endeavors. Like, there's a lot of people that don't believe you should do any strength and conditioning training. You should just do technique, and you should just do sparring. There's a lot of people that go that route. And then there's other people that think that's absolutely foolish. You should especially once you learn the skills, you should, if you're competing, you should focus primarily on strength and conditioning, because really it's just about burning your body out and reaching an incredibly high level of cardio, so that when you compete, you know all these techniques already. You will now have a gas tank that's superior to your opponents, and that will lead to victory. Like, there's a lot of modalities, and there's a lot of schools of thought.
Can we talk about that for a sec? Can we talk about that for a sec?
Sure.
So it's interesting to me. I see guys who come in who are just super strong, and I think to a certain extent we need to be careful, because strength. And again, I'm not speaking from experience so much. I'm speaking just conceptually. I think there's a tendency for strong guys or big guys to over-rely upon their strength and their size.
Small man jiu-jitsu is the best jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
So I tell people, if they're thinking about learning jiu-jitsu, learn from a little person. Because little guys, like a Hoyler Gracie or even Eddie Bravo, before he started lifting weights, Eddie's quite a bit bigger now, but Eddie was always 150 pounds, 140 pounds. So when he was rolling, he would always be rolling with big guys, and he had to rely on perfect technique. Yeah. Whereas a guy like Frank Mir, who's a very large man, has a lot of physical strength, and they rely on that.
Yeah, and I think, well, you tell me what you think. Do you think that if somebody goes in strong and they focus on that, often that can come at the expense of learning techniques?
Yes, it can. But here's the problem. The concept of strength and conditioning, a lot of people think, oh, well, you're doing squats and deadlifts. Yeah. A good example is a guy I've had on this podcast before. His name's Nick Curson. He trains Rafael Dos Anjos. He trains Ruslan Provodnikov, who's a famous boxer. A lot of world-class athletes. Joe Schilling, who's Glory, whose T-shirt I'm wearing, one of their best fighters. Excellent kickboxer, world champion. What he's doing is his strength and conditioning program. He trained under Marv Marinovich. And Nick does a lot of plyometric exercises, a lot of sprinting, a lot of box jumps, and all these really unorthodox techniques. And the idea is to improve your ability to execute things, improve your ability to close the distance, improve your ability to get out of the way, improve your ability to maintain a high workload through the rounds. Like if you can only throw, let's say, 50 kicks in a round before you get exhausted. And if you can improve that through strength and conditioning, make it 75 or 80, you're going to have a significant advantage over the pace that you can push on your opponent. And that is, in his opinion and many other people's opinion, and this is a really open debate right now in the world of martial arts, because it has not been solved. Because it relies on so many variables. It relies on the athlete themselves, their mental fortitude, their dedication to their craft, how good is their technique in the first place before they embark on a strength and conditioning program. There's so many variables. I think to unbox all this and to make it a little bit easier for people that are going, what the fuck are they talking about? What we're saying is there's a lot of people that have distorted ideas about reality itself. And a method for exposing that kind of thinking, which is like this sort of dogmatic religious thinking, which it's ultimately accepted by all the people around you, but never critically judged. Yeah. A really good method is jiu-jitsu. And the reason why jiu-jitsu is such a good method is because jiu-jitsu is one of the few martial arts that you could practice at any age, and you could apply and you could also watch those techniques being applied by other people. And when you know jiu-jitsu, like yesterday I went to the Eddie Bravo Invitational, which was at the Orpheum Theater in downtown LA. Some of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the world were going at it, and it was really amazing to watch. It was awesome, and it was a crowd filled with thousands of people who were fans of jiu-jitsu and practitioners, so it was a really educated crowd. And what was cool about that is we all understood, like when a guy got to a position like, oh, whoa, 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 and the crowd would cheer when someone would get out of a heel hook, or they would cheer when a guy would be able to tap a guy with a rear naked choke. And we were watching all these things play out. So there was lessons for me as someone who's not competing and sitting in the audience, because I've spent so much time doing jiu-jitsu, I was watching these interactions take place in a very logical
truth-seeking.
and trackable.
It's a truth-seeking community.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, when the techniques work, the techniques work. And by the way, what's interesting is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as it was first created or first sort of established, came from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and Helio Gracie and Carlos Gracie, who were probably two of the most important people ever in the history of martial arts. They sort of manipulated those techniques and improved upon them and made the art more about the submissions than it was about the stand-up and the bringing the fight to the ground. And in doing so, they established a series of techniques, and we refer to those techniques as the basics. There are some people in that world that think that the basics are all you need, and they don't accept the new techniques. And it's really fascinating because that's essentially how jiu-jitsu became effective in the first place. Is because the new techniques that were established by Carlos and Helio Gracie and all these different movements, like the guard, like learning how to do triangles off your back and all these different things, which people had no idea in the early UFCs. Like when Royce Gracie tapped out Dan Severn, everybody's like, what the fuck is he doing? He's got his legs wrapped around his neck and his arm. What is this? And then Dan's about to go out and he taps, and everybody's like, whoa, this is crazy. Well, those were, in our world, completely new techniques. Well, there's a lot of new techniques that are constantly being established now by these young, innovative practitioners that some of the old guard are ignoring. And the real question is that smart? Do you just need the basics? And it's a hot debate right now. But again, this hot debate can be proven.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
That's exactly right. And if, as a result of this being proven, somebody doesn't change their mind, so the core piece what's really important is belief revision.
Right.
Critical thinking is all about, I made a mistake, I was wrong, I thought this, you know what, I made a mistake. And so if they don't do that, then they're somehow deficient in that attitudinal disposition of critical rationality. But it would seem to me, if it could be demonstrated, people who want to seek the truth, in this case, they want to win against a resisting opponent.
Some would accept the data, but many haven't. And my good friend Eddie Bravo is a perfect example of that. I went with Eddie to Brazil in 2003, and he competed in the World Championships, and he beat Gustavo Dantes, who was a world champion at the time. He tapped him in his first fight, and then after that, he fought Royce Gracie, who is one of the greatest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitors of all time. Royce Gracie is a national hero. They closed the other mats off. They put a spotlight on the main event, and they thought that Royce was going to wreck this young kid who wasn't even a black belt at the time. Eddie was a brown belt, okay? And Eddie, with his unorthodox techniques that people had laughed at, tapped Royce Gracie in front of everybody. And he got him with a triangle, but he got it. The setup was his rubber guard setup. Yeah. He has all these crazy guard setups, and his game has advanced light years since then. But the point being that people mocked him for that. It didn't help that he went to his next fight. He fought Leo Vieira, and he popped his rib early in the fight and got dominated in that fight and almost got tapped. But there was also a giant emotional letdown because he couldn't believe he just tapped Royce Gracie, and now he's moving on, and he's fighting Leo Vieira, who's another monster Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. But here's the point. For the longest time, there was two schools of thought. There was the old guard that just did not accept him. They openly mocked him, and they really criticized his whole movement and his techniques. What champions does he produce? All this doesn't really work on real fighters. Until he had a rematch with Royce many years later and just wrecked him. Right. I mean, it was worse than the first time because Royce didn't tap, but he got his knee destroyed. I mean, if you watch that video, Royce just deals with the fact that his knee's getting ripped apart while Eddie is mangling it. But it was never a moment where Eddie was in trouble. He dictated the entire match, and we played the fight on the TV, on the podcast, and had Eddie explain what he was doing. And even when it looked like Royce was improving the position, Eddie was like, no, I let him do that so I could do this, and then I would adjust. And he's like explaining, I pulled him back on top of me because I knew if I did that, I would be able to move his arm higher up on my shoulder. Then I rolled him back onto his back, and then I can get deeper in on And when he was explaining that, it was even more humiliating because you got this guy, Royce Gracie, who's a multiple-time world champion, who just did not learn these new techniques. Feels like he's got these old techniques, and that's it. So this is the application of it. That's
exactly
in action.
right. And if you don't learn it, and if you're not willing to revise your beliefs, and if you're not willing to test this and accept the conclusion, you might think something's common sense. Common sense is irrelevant. What's relevant is what works.
Yeah, well, these new techniques that are constantly being innovated, they're constantly changing. Like, it's almost impossible to stay up on all of it unless it's a monster part of your life and you're absorbing them every day. Like the leg lock game is this new element that over the last few years has really come into play in a major way, thanks to a bunch of guys: John Donaher, Eddie Cummins, Gary Tonin, who won the Eddie Bravo Invitational yesterday. These really high-level practitioners and instructors are constantly adding new improvements to approaches and techniques, so it's all applicable. It's all, you can watch it happen in real time, and even as someone who's not competing, like me sitting in the audience, I understand the positions and the movements. So when I see all this new stuff and I see all these new approaches, it's like, wow, this game just continues to grow and evolve.
Yeah, and what amazes me is when I watch kids' classes, kids are doing the craziest stuff. I mean, they really have stood on the shoulders of giants, and they're doing stuff that's just so advanced. And I look at that now and I think, wow, it's like speed would be the great thing. How quickly these techniques and this game has been advanced in a very, very short period of time. There has literally been in my lifetime a revolution in the martial arts.
Yeah, it really has. I've been saying this for a while, but I'll say it again. The UFC has changed martial arts so radically that there's been more improvement since 1993. There's been more evolution than there have been in the last 10,000 years. That's real. That's 100% true. You go back and watch martial arts from 1993 and you watch the UFC today, it's a completely different realm. It's fascinating. The difference is, of course, when you talk about jiu-jitsu being applicable and all, it's applicable inside jiu-jitsu. The problem is when you get someone who's a really good wrestler, who's an awesome kickboxer, and you can't use your jiu-jitsu, you're still going to get fucked up. Like a guy like Chuck Liddell, who you're not going to take down, and he's going to knock you dead. He's a great wrestler. You mean he's a perfect anti-jiu-jitsu guy.
Okay, but even that, look at that. I gave 5 things that work. Boxing and wrestling were 2 of the 5. They train against resisting opponents. So it's no surprise then, and maybe sometimes...
But he comes from a Kempo background, I mean, you listed that as one of the martial arts that don't really work, but that's the martial art that Chuck Liddell learned for striking under John Hackleman.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, that's another example. People can... So you're much more versed in the specifics than I am, but I saw a Gunnar Nelson fight in which he did I think it was a back roundhouse to someone's head, and
roundhouse, a hook kick.
He did a roundhouse to someone's head.
Okay.
He trained in traditional karate for years. Huh?
Yes. Yeah, he's a brown belt in karate.
Yeah, and so it's not that these techniques can't be integrated or that they don't work. Part of the problem is that they're sold as systems. It's like instead of picking and choosing. So if everybody trained against resisting opponents, it's not clear to me that there would be any styles. Styles would fade away.
Right, but then that highlights the problem that we brought up earlier, that you really can't resist. You can't train 100% resisting with kickboxing if you want to be a healthy member of society.
No, that's true.
You're going to get fucking
doubt.
brain damage.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have brain damage, and I stopped really getting hit in the head when I was 22.
Yeah.
I mean, I really haven't been hit in the head that much since then, but I'm for sure something's fucked up in there.
Yeah, I was watching a guy hit the pads about a brown belt a couple weeks ago, and I just thought to myself, I mean, the whole thing was moving, and I thought to myself, like, wow, like if that guy ever hit me,
oh yeah,
I mean, that would be it. I mean, it would just be over. And I watch people kick the heavy bag sometimes.
Have you ever seen Melvin Manhoof kick the pads?
No.
Jesus Christ. Pull up Melvin Manhoof trains with, I forget his trainer's name, Mike's gym in, I forget how to say his last, Passenger? I forget how to say it because they're Dutch. They're from Holland. But there's a video, there's a bunch of videos of Melvin, but Melvin kicking the pads with him, it's goddamn terrifying.
Yeah.
Because he's a super fucking athlete, and he's training with this really aggressive Muay Thai trainer or kickboxing trainer. Mike's gym is famous for like guys like Badr Hari and Manhoof that are just fucking ferocious, aggressive competitors. And Manhoof is particularly famous for having just unbelievable knockout power. He knocked out Mark Hunt. He weighed 185 pounds.
Yeah.
He knocked out Mark Hunt when Mark Hunt was probably 300 pounds.
Yeah, and so imagine some of those guys or people in their lineage fighting.
Here it is. What?
Fighting these guys who do katas.
There's not pads though. You gotta focus pads. See if you can find one with him. Yeah, that's just see if you could find Melvin Manhoof. That's him though. That's Melvin, but they're just sparring there. Which most of the time they go hard, but they usually don't go too hard to the head.
Yeah,
That's the Holland style.
So imagine those guys fighting these guys who are in make-believe land.
Oh yeah,
who
you
are in
get fucked up quick.
fantasy land, right?
Well, we've played videos many times, and recently one where here's Melvin. See, get some volume on that, Jamie. Dude. Sound's not synced for some reason, but you get the picture of it. He's a fucking destroyer. That switch kick to the body, good lord. When you watch this guy in real life, it's even more stunning because you really can feel the impact when he's kicking the pads.
Yeah, so the other thing about that is that guy knows what he can do and he can't do.
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of these young kids, they see a movie with a guy who's beating up 5 guys with knives and bats and stuff. It's total make-believe land.
Yeah.
And it immerses people in a culture of make-believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. No, I couldn't agree more. And I was in that culture.
Yeah, I was too.
I used to teach it. I taught it at Boston University. I mean, it was like a huge part of my life. And the wake-up call that I got was a really stunning thing and it was a long progression. It wasn't just one wake-up call. Yeah. It was like one wake-up call and then another one and then deeper and deeper and deeper. And then the UFC comes along and you're like, oh, fuck. You know, oh, this is this. And then you get this understanding. Like, I live my life under this illusion.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting to me about that is those are culturally reinforced, right? There are these rituals. There's the bowing, the master. There are other people, they're your friends that you come to do these things with. All of that reinforces the delusion. It's very similar to religions, the way that religions focus, with the difference being that people in religions, people who have faith, they think they're better people as a consequence of them having faith. Whereas very few people in the delusional martial arts think that. They think they're good fighters, but the techniques are too dangerous to test, or we can't do this. If we did this, we'd kill you. But those cultures of delusion keep people trapped in thinking about things that remove them from reality.
Yeah. There's definitely some of that, but I think there's some good to the idea of respecting a dojo as a place where when you walk into it, like one of the things, stupid but it's true, when I was a kid, I used to have the keys to it was a dojang, because it was Taekwondo, was the Korean word. Even when no one was there, I would bow when I would walk in. When I would go to work out in the middle of the night, like I would go there, I had keys. So I would train sometimes. I'd show up at midnight. I'd go there and lock the door and go in myself. And then when I stepped into the training area, I would always bow. And I was like almost like an OCD thing. Like I wouldn't not do it, because in my mind, when I had been trained and taught that when I entered that room, I had to bow. And even when there's fucking no one there, man, I'm by myself, and I always bowed. Like one time, my girlfriend was a freak in high school. She wanted to fuck in the gym, and I was like, we can't do it. I'm like, I won't do it. We can't do it here. And she's like, come on. I'm like, nope.
Wow,
this is not happening.
That was a lost opportunity for you.
Not really. I fucked the shit out of her. I fucked her all the time. We were like little fucking rabbits. But there was the one place where I wouldn't do it. I was like, we can't do it here. Like this is sacred ground for me.
So I guess here's my problem with that, besides the lost opportunity.
But it wasn't a lost opportunity. For me, it was an execution of discipline of my mind. Like it was very hard for a 17-year-old boy to not have sex with this hot, I think she was 16-year-old girl who wanted to bang in this karate or taekwondo gym. It's like, for me, it was like that. What martial arts meant to me at the time was the first thing that I had ever done that made me feel like I wasn't a loser. So my whole life I'd been insecure, And we had moved around a lot when I was a kid. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends, and I never felt like I fit in. And I always felt, I didn't know my dad, and my stepdad was a little distant. There was all this stuff going on, right? There was all these things that just didn't feel right, didn't make me feel good. And then this one thing came along that made me feel good. This one thing came along that I had gotten really proficient at really quickly and was absolutely obsessed with, and I was doing it all day, and that was my whole focus of my life.
Sex?
Other than the girl. No,
I'm not sure.
I'm sure I wasn't good at that. I'm sure it was probably terrible. But the point being, like, I wasn't willing to sacrifice that, like the ideals.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So
today, were you the same today, do you think? I mean, do you have that notion of sacred with regard to these things?
I don't have that notion of sacred when it comes to like a space, but I do in terms of like my approach to things. Like if I'm focused on something, like I don't allow myself to get distracted if something is critical. Something's like really important to focus on, and I decide this is what I'm doing now. Now I'm doing this, And so when,
like, if I may, I don't want to be overly personal, but like your marriage, you decided to do it. You're focusing on it, so it's taken a kind of a
marriage is a contract. Okay, relationships, yes. Like the way you engage with someone, like if you care about someone, here's a good way, not just relationships as far as like sexual relationships, but friendships. If you care about someone and you really enjoy being with them and they're one of the most important people in your life, like when you interact with them, I think you should interact with them under that provision or with that thought in mind, with that intention.
With what I missed you.
The
with
intention
what
that you care about them very deeply. These are important people in your life.
Authentically, you want to relate authentically. Yeah.
Like you don't ever want. Like I would never like really good friends. I would never yell at them and call them a piece of shit. I never want you in my life, or say crazy things to people that sometimes people say to each other. Hurtful things. Yeah. It doesn't mean don't be critical. It doesn't mean don't correct someone if you see them doing something. If you see your friend doing something stupid, but I don't think that's a good example. I think because marriage is not something that it's like something you're trying to do. Marriage is like, or even relationships, friendships are just they're interactions. So relationships it's different. Like it should be fun and enjoyable and all that good stuff. What I'm talking about is a discipline.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to tease out from you is that when you were 17, you had this idea of the dojo being a sacred place.
Yeah.
And you talked about what that meant to you. And I'm curious if there's anything that you hold sacred now.
That's a good question. Like that? No. I've definitely changed my ideas about what that even was at the time. I think what that was, that need for that sacred space and this like intense concentration and purity of that environment was really like my ticket out. My ticket out of this life that was really unfulfilling.
Maybe to manhood?
Yeah, that definitely. To sovereignty, personal sovereignty, to realize that it's not that I was a loser. It's just that I wasn't a winner, and I had to figure out how to be one. It wasn't all my failures. What I was is now, and all those failures and all those mistakes and bad feelings that I had, those were really just lessons. And that now that I have this new focus and this new thing, and it's shown massive positive results, I will honor that. And that's what it was to me.
The new focus being what?
Martial arts, fighting, competing, taekwondo. So that space, the dojo, the dojang, represented a sacred place for me because it represented this new ticket. And I wasn't about to cash that in for some pussy. Holla. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my thoughts. Now, if there's anything, I would think that the world, like life itself, is that environment. Life itself is that dojang. Life itself is that thing. So you don't want to steal. You don't want to commit crimes against people. You don't want to do things to hurt people. All those terrible things that we see out in the world. If the world was your dojang, if the world was your church, if the world was your sacred place, you would never want to commit bad acts in your sacred place.
That's lovely. I wish we could figure out a way to help people adopt those values. I wish we could come up with some way to, especially when we see what's going on in the Middle East and we see what's going on in the world, and we see the way we're treating our environment, our climate. I wish there was some way to make that real and palatable to people so that we would start being more authentic and more sincere with someone. And I think what you said about it's not about criticism the way I look at it. I think it's about forthright speech. You can be forthright in your speech with somebody and not be an asshole, not be a jerk. I think those kinds of relationships, for me, Aristotle talks about that too, but for me, I think that the most meaningful relationships are those people with whom I can be authentic and be myself and be real. And those are kind of, I don't like the word sacred though. I guess that's the one kind of nitpick I have.
Because you attach that to religion.
Well, because I attach it to the inability to revise something.
Right. I attach it to the utmost respect.
Yeah, so if we replaced a sacred for respect, I think we'd be on the same page.
It's just noises. It's one of the things that I don't like about labels. Like, I like intent. And intent, like my idea of sacred is not like God. Like, it's not like it's not a deity, this unnamed, unknown word that's been passed down from person to person. It's based on personal experience. It's based on a real thing. So when I say sacred, like my love for my children is sacred.
Right.
Like I say it in that way.
Ditto.
I don't, say it like in terms of like harps and the clouds and all that kind of jazz. And when we were talking about like don't be an asshole to people you care about, like it certainly doesn't mean I'm some sort of a perfect person. It certainly doesn't mean that I have been an asshole. And then sometimes when you're responding to someone else being retarded or someone being ridiculous, you can be an asshole because you don't have the patience for it anymore, because you don't have the at the moment you don't have the temperament to
maturity.
It could be maturity. It could be you're overwhelmed. There's a lot of variables. So like if someone hears this and says, oh, well, man, I've been an asshole lately. Maybe I'm a bad person. Like, no, it's just recognizing those moments where you probably could have handled something better and then continuing to improve. And then also this idea, this is a really important one, because people have this idea that somehow I'm 30 years old, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I'm 50 years old, I should have learned by now. That's all bullshit. Throw that away. Toss that shit aside. Like these ideas of numbers that people have in their head that by a certain age you should stop. You are alive. And if you are alive and if you are thinking, all those numbers that you keep attaching, well, when Einstein was 30, shut the fuck up. Stop doing that. That is a waste of your time. And stop saying to yourself, I should be better by now. I'm such a total non-helping thought. What you need to think of is life. You're living, you're alive right now, and if you've made a mistake and you're still continuing to learn and grow, that's all just data.
Yeah, and I think bundled with that is gratitude.
Gratitude's giant.
We don't say a prayer in my household, but we go around every night. We have 7 people living with us, and we say what we're grateful for. And
what are you running, a commune? What are you doing?
It's a long story of a woman from China there. It's a long story.
Jesus Christ!
But
what does she do? Wink, wink.
No.
Sex slaves in from boats.
She
what are you
doesn't
doing, man?
do. We have another woman who lives there.
That cargo container.
My
Bring it
buddy
over here.
lives in the garage over there.
Pay no attention to the banging.
No, but we go around. We talk about what they're grateful for. Everyone's grateful, and I think that there's something. It's an opportunity to be authentic at that time, but it's also like I think verbalizing those things are important. So it's not just the negative, I shouldn't be doing this, but it's the positive. Look, as a general rule of thumb, if you ever have any doubts about it, just be kind to people.
It also it's great when you reinforce it with your friends, like verbalizing it. Like I'm a big fan of I tell my friends I love them all the time. Yeah. Like me and my friend, like. My wife jokes around about it. Like, she goes, I don't know any men that tell their friends they love them all the time. But all my friends do. We all tell each other we love each other. I love you, brother. And we hang up the phone. I'm doing it with all my friends. And, we're always hugging and always saying, I appreciate you. I think it's really important. Like, I have a very tight-knit group of friends that I care about very much. And they're all they're very motivated and they're healthy. And they're not without flaws, but They got shit going on, and it empowers me.
Yeah, no. So here's why that's important, because you got the tattoos, you got the build, you've been in the ring, you're friends with whoever you're friends with, and I think that whether you like it or not, you're in a position, particularly with young people, to look up to you. And that is exactly the kind of behavior that we want to see modeled. It's not emotionally immature for a guy to cry at a tragic event. I tell my friends I love them. I tell people, I tell my buddy over there I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to stay at his house, et cetera. And I think that kind of, we live in a culture that's suppressed these, particularly males, this ability for men to communicate in an authentic way.
Also to experience emotion, like this idea of somehow or another being stoic has virtue to it, especially in the face of tragedy or even joy. Like I could cry more for happy moments sometimes than I do for sad moments. But I'll cry at fucking cartoons, man. I almost cried. I have not a ton of times.
I'm not crying at cartoons, but yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that journey from you as a 17-year-old to now, I mean, there's some really core lessons for people out there struggling with maybe issues of sexuality or issues of feeling they hate the world or they're not good enough or their self-esteem issues and I think that
acceptance.
Yeah, acceptance, and that's what we all want. I
Yeah.
mean, we all want to be loved, and
look,
so I'm 49, and it's like I'd much rather people say about me, hey, Pete's a really good guy, than Pete's a really smart guy. It's like I want to embody those virtues, but more than that, I think that the story that you told there, it's something that's accessible to people, and it's a type of thing that we need to do. We need to figure out how to move our culture towards these more humane ways of dealing with people. And my own opinion is that we don't need superstitions to do that. You're a perfect example of that, right? We don't need people making objective claims about reincarnating in times through bodies like the Dalai Lama.
Wait a minute, you don't think the Dalai Lama is a reincarnated saint? Are you serious? You got nervous there for a moment.
I thought you were going to believe that. I'm like, wow, this is going to be a long conversation.
Dude, don't you see my Buddha?
Yeah,
it's right there, bro. I got another Buddha right there.
See, that's the funny thing. If I'll call
cool.
bullshit on that in class, and everybody will freak out. Whereas if I say Jesus walking on water and I deconstruct, but if you start talking about Buddhism, people are like, whoa,
bullshit, man.
How could you say that?
How dare you,
whatever,
dude? The Dalai Lama is so cool. He's friends with Steven Seagal.
Yeah, well, I actually saw them years ago together doing their little thing there.
It all gets connected.
Yeah, right.
No, I had a psychedelic trip that I saw a bunch of golden Buddhas. So that's what that
LSD?
guy's all about. No, DMT.
Oh, wow.
It was that like literally that guy, like in that position. But there was fractals, like millions of them, infinite numbers of them. It was very strange. So that's what that little book. This guy made it for me. I wish I remembered this homeboy's name. I'll find it somewhere. I'll throw it up on Instagram. I think it's on my Instagram picture, right? I don't know. I'll find it. But yeah, all of those things. All those things are not necessary. It's I think we are necessary. Like all these the false beliefs and all the thing. What they are is like scaffolding. I feel like they're scaffolding for like evolution, and I think that's ultimately the benefit that religion does provide is in these insane beliefs in the sky gods and all these different things, and we show reverence to these deities, and they have these rules that we must follow, otherwise we'll be punished. In those rules, there becomes order, and in the order becomes society, and that's something that people always like to fall back on. Like, we are a Judeo-Christian founded society, and our Judeo-Christian ethics. Like, I saw some woman who was arguing about Muslim terrorists, and that was like one of the big things, that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian ethics. So what? Monkeys were founded on eating bananas, and we're not monkeys anymore. It's like, it's such a stupid fucking, like, just because something's founded on something that's illogical doesn't mean you should have reverence for that illogical thing.
It's perfectly stated. That's part of the problem, I think, with once we make ideas sacred.
Yes.
And they become much more difficult, if not impossible, to revise. Like
Right.
George Bush saying, which is actually, I invite your viewers or listeners to listen to this. He's prayed about the war in Iraq. He knows what God wants him to do. So the moment you do that, it becomes irrevisible.
I used to have a bit about that, where George Bush was like, that he's prayed about the world in Iraq and, God bless the troops. Imagine if he said, instead of that, we have found Satan, he is in Afghanistan, and we're moving tanks into that area. Everybody would be like, whoa, what the fuck did you just say?
Right.
That's the draw. That's the line that we draw.
Right.
Like, you're
Or
not
Hindu,
allowed to say.
he prayed to Vishnu or something.
No, but I mean, you're not allowed to say that you know the devil.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say the devil's real. Like, you never hear the president bring up the devil. They'll bring up God. God bless the troops. God. They'll never say Satan is at work and Satan is in the hearts and minds of these enemies. They never say that because it's so preposterous that we're slowly, as evolution, as thinking evolves and changes. I know evolution is the wrong word for there, but as it improves and expands, we are no longer accepting the idea of Satan. Like culturally, Satan was an accepted thing hundreds of years ago. It was parallel. Like if you looked at the mentions of Satan and the mentions of God, they were right up there together. You're blaming Satan on the bad things and you're praising God for the good things. That's no longer the case. Now we just cling to these absurd notions of this one that's watching us all the time, and you gotta sort of peripherally mention it and casually reference it without going into detail, and you're allowed to do that because it makes people think, well, you're on the same page as me. You're a God-fearing Christian man like myself. I'm a God-fearing Christian man myself as well. God bless you. God bless you as well. But if you go, Satan is looking out for you. Satan is watching you right now. Satan is just letting the air out of your tires. Like, you go, well, that guy's a fucking idiot.
Right.
Like, we've moved past Satan, but we haven't moved past God.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Or the idea of God. If there is some all-knowing entity that is controlling everything and is filled with love and has a grand plan for the universe, they have yet to show themselves. So this is all just a concept and an idea with no basis in fact, and as we have found more facts about the nature of reality and the world itself, it seems more and more preposterous with every day. Every day that scientists come up with these new equations that show the way the universe could have possibly been formed, and every day that these fucking guys at the CERN laboratory, the Large Hadron Collider, are discovering these what were at one time theoretical particles, showing them to be true and their calculations to be correct. We have a deeper and deeper understanding of the universe. But we love to think that right now that we're filled with knowledge, and we love to look at ourselves now and look at the past as, well, they didn't know back then, but we know now. But if we looked in the past, they would have the same ideas. Exactly. They would look back at those poor monkey people with the bananas, and they'd go, those fucking dummies, they didn't even know houses yet. We will one day look back at 2015 like, what a bunch of fools. What a bunch of ridiculous people that were still, they had this incredibly complicated society and this wonderful access to information, but yet they were still shackled down by ideology and killing each other over religion and ancient superstitions that dictated their behaviors. Like, what a weird time to be in. They'll look at us now in 2015. They'll say, "What a strange time! This adolescent period of enlightenment, where they're still concentrating on stupid shit, and the fucking president of the United States can openly talk about God, and no one goes, "What is God? What are you saying? Like, what are you saying? Do you think Jesus came back from the dead? What do you think? Do you think someone walked on water? Do you believe in the literal translation? Are you an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? Well, the New Testament." No, well, the New Testament was made by Constantine, who was a fucking Roman emperor who wasn't even Christian. He didn't even believe it. He became a Christian on his fucking deathbed. Like, that's when he became a Christian. Like, all these people that are like really into the New Testament, and like, I'll talk about Old Testament shit, and people get mad at me on Twitter. They'll send me this fucking hate text. You understand, motherfucker, what the difference is between the Old Testament and the New Testament? Because the New Testament is utter horseshit. It's created by a bishop and a fucking emperor. That's a fact. That's like established religious fact. Like everyone knows where it came from. And not only that, it was written hundreds of years after the death of Jesus. So what are you talking about? Because if you're talking about the old stuff, you got to go deep. Go to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Go to the most ridiculous aspects of that, and tell me if you basing your life on that. Because that's even more preposterous. They found them in clay pots in Qumran, written on animal skins. These people thought the world was flat and the sun was 17 miles away. And we're gonna, they did, they really did. And we're gonna. This is how we're gonna live our lives. This is it. This is all the facts we need. Fuck the Large Hadron Collider. Fuck CERN. Fuck Stephen Hawking. Fuck quantum physics. Fuck Neil deGrasse Tyson. Fuck those dudes with their telescopes. No, we're going to base it on leather skins and charcoal ink.
Right.
Like, really? That's the conversation we're having when we're talking about ideological religions.
That was a thing of beauty, by the way.
Well, thanks.
That was a thing of beauty.
What's what it is? I mean, and people think, well, you're an atheist, you're an asshole, what do you believe in? I had a guy yell at me at a comedy club once because I did this bit about Scientology. I did this bit about Scientology, about watching a Scientology documentary with my mom, who made me go to Catholic school, and how my mom thinks Scientology is ridiculous. I'm like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
And this guy is like, yo, what do you believe in? Well, what do you believe in? Like, what, do I have to believe in something?
Right.
Do I have to believe? I believe in everything that's been proven. I believe that this is made out of wood. And when I'm proven wrong...
Right. You change your mind.
Yeah,
That's back to the jiu-jitsu thing again.
Yeah.
But when you also think about it, what an unbelievable arrogance to think that you know the will of the creator of the universe. You know what he wants you to do. You know where he wants you to put your genitals. I mean, like you said... In philosophy, it's called the problem of induction, or looking at the past resembling the past. And we will look back. There's absolutely no question in my mind that you're correct. And we will say, wow, you believe this. How could we possibly have believed this? But what's interesting to me is we know that will happen. Like, we know that will happen. And it's an opportunity for us to reflect and say, wow, are we being arrogant right now? Are we thinking we know things? Are we pretending to know things when we don't know them? And I think that a lot of that God talk is a type of arrogance. I think it's a type of people, I don't know, wanting to assert how moral they are so they reap advantages, the president, or... I mean, I think it's a very complicated social and even political problem, but it's also a type of arrogance. It is
definitely a type of arrogance, and it's also a way that people establish the moral high ground.
Yeah.
They establish a dominant social position over you. And people love to do that. They love to do that with their pious attitude. What they're doing is, by them accepting these religious tenets, they are somehow superior to you. And some people don't do that. I shared a hunting camp with this guy. I don't need to name his name. He's a wonderful guy who's an elk hunter. And this guy would get up in the morning every day before everybody. And we got up fucking early. We would leave the camp by 6 a.m. So this guy was up. I would get up to take a shower at like 5 a.m. And this dude was up reading the Bible. And he never talked about it. And he never talked about like God or Jesus or any of the rules. But to him, it was a way that he explored these ideas and how he related to the world. And in application, this guy was a fantastic human being.
Absolutely.
He was a wonderful guy. Like he was kind, and it was like when you had conversations with him, he was generous, and he was very friendly, and he was curious, and he would ask like these really introspective questions. Right. Like he was a good guy.
And I think that's what matters. I think it matters less whether or not someone is an atheist or not, or Hindu. And I think what matters is how we treat other people. I think what matters is if we're kind to people, if we listen to people, if we do our best to engage them honestly and authentically. And often we get too caught up in, well, what is someone's religion? Especially now with the Republicans going berserk with this whole
Muslim thing.
I mean, it's just
crazy.
Disgraceful.
Well, did you see that video? It's a fantastic video that's just been put out recently. I think by some guys in Holland, where they were, because it's in another language.
Oh, the Bible. Yeah, I saw that.
They put a cover of, they put the Quran's cover on the Bible, and they read passages to people on the street, and they asked them, what do they think about this? And, they were like, well, this is ridiculous, and this is outrageous, and it was all from the Bible.
Yeah.
Like hilarious shit that a lot of people don't know is in the Bible. And but when you even bring this up, people already, you're questioning their beliefs, and they start foaming at the mouth and fuming, and I can feel my phone get heavy from hate tweets right now. Just it's just coming in. You're fucking questioning my view of reality, and it makes me uncomfortable when I go to work.
Right, but isn't that the exact same issue with someone doing a fantasy-based martial arts?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people where they're fucking furious at me because I don't believe in their death touch. I've had conversations with people. They're like, you are arrogant, and your belief in martial arts, and you're in a position of influence because of your, you work for the UFC, and what you're doing is you're fucking up because you're not telling the truth about certain. Stop.
Right.
Like, stop. Abandon it. But if you're like me, who, like I said, I was martial arts and the dojang was so sacred to me, I wouldn't even have sex with my girlfriend there. That represents like such an important part of their life. It's just so lucky for me that it happened during my formative period where I was exposed to reality at a young age where I had to accept it. I was like, oh, Jesus. I had to accept that these techniques don't really work all the time. Some of them work, but you have to learn all the other stuff for them to work at all.
Yeah, and I wonder about, again, so few people have written about this. I wonder about the experience that you had of that. And I had of that. We were in the same boat, realizing over time that these things just didn't work and we had wasted our time. And I wonder how similar that is to someone's escape from a faith. Like
100%.
Yeah.
People that have escaped from cults. Like I've had folks on that have used to be in cults. Kurt Metzger is a perfect example. He's a hilarious stand-up comedian, a friend of mine. And, he was in Jehovah's Witness. Is that what yeah, I think so. And he won't accept any stupid shit now because he's like, no, like when it comes to the regressive left and some of these ideologies where you have to look at something in a certain way and you can't look at it in any other way, it's like a dogma. Right. And he's like, no, I've seen this before. I know what this is. What you're doing is you're saying you have to think a certain way. That's bullshit. That's bull. Like it can be discussed. Like you can discuss certain aspects of people's behavior or gender identity or gender pronouns.
In fact, not only can it be discussed, but it has to be discussed.
It should be.
We have to have arenas, and a lot of people have been writing about this lately. I wrote about it in my book, and I tweeted about it. If we're not allowed an opportunity to have a conversation, then extremists will step in with the answers. Like Trump is a great example of that. So we have to create spaces. Talking about spaces, this is probably another offshoot of the conversation.
Safe space.
The regressive left, right? We need to create opportunities for people, for sincere inquirers to engage things. And right now we don't have that. And again, I can bring it back to jiu-jitsu. I mean, you could just think about what would happen if, this is a technique, you do this, blah, 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 it's sacred, we don't question it. Then you'd never get to the truth. You'd deny people the opportunities that they need to figure out things for themselves.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think martial arts is an excellent vehicle for that. One of the things that was just explained to me when I was really young that really did sink in, my instructor was a disciple of General Che Hyung-yi, who was the founder of Taekwondo. He was, he taught it to troops, and he was like one of the guys like really honed the techniques for maximum power and efficiency and leverage. And they had this idea that martial arts was a vehicle for developing human potential. And I read that when I was like 15. And I've always used that phrase because I think that's such a massive.
What do you mean by such a massive what?
Well, it's so clear when you understand that when you go through life is filled with questions, adversity, puzzles, different things you have to figure out, the questions you have to ask of yourself, examining your own behavior, objective reasoning. There's all these different variables that come into play when it comes to life. And I think those are highlighted in the realm of martial arts because if you can land a kick and you knock someone out, then that happened. That worked. Right. You were in the ultimate, like especially the Ultimate Fighting Championship is a perfect example of that. But there's no higher level of problem solving than problem solving with dire physical consequences, because your emotions are on the line, your fears, your anxiety. There's so many fight or flight mechanisms in place. There's self-doubt. There's, how much discipline did you truly execute in training? Did you give everything you had? Did you reach your full potential? Yeah. Most people go through life without even coming close to their full potential, and they live life in this weird fog of uncertainty and of regret and of just this feeling that they're not accomplishing what they want to, that they're not achieving their full potential. And that martial arts is a vehicle for developing potential, because through the very difficult training and through pushing yourself when you don't think you can, and through this overwhelming desire for comfort, where you don't want to get out of bed, where you don't want to do the training, where you would rather just blow it off and don't go to class, by forcing yourself to do that, it engages the muscles of discipline.
The inner muscles,
and it also, you understand about accomplishing goals and about reality, about facing things.
So that is just so important. So again, it's jiu-jitsu, right? So when you defeat somebody, like if you work really hard and you tap someone out, you get a sense of, you get a little, I'll speak for myself. I feel good, like, wow, like I worked for this, I tried hard, like, I work on my baseball bat choke now, and I feel pretty good. So that activity, your hard work, brought you to a point in which you would tap somebody out, and as a consequence of that, you feel self-esteem. What we have done is we have inverted the system. We tried to teach self-esteem absent any accomplishments. That's not the way it works. Self-esteem is a byproduct of hard work, of something that you have done as a direct result of an accomplishment. So every few years they give kids all around the world a test. I read this in Martin Gross's The Conspiracy of Ignorance many years ago. Excuse me. And the test is like, hey, all these people in the world, the Koreans, the industrialized world, the Japanese, Germans, etc., they took this. How do you think you did in relation to them? Americans consistently score in the bottom quartile in terms of their math and science, how well they did in comparatively. But they score extraordinarily high, number one, almost always in terms of self-esteem. We have taught the wrong things. We've focused on the wrong things. Our school systems have been oriented toward the wrong things. And I think, again, you can just bring that back to jiu-jitsu and look at that. You couldn't possibly, you could teach someone all the self, you walk in, they get a white belt, you teach them to feel good about themselves, do this, but does it work?
Yeah. No, you could get a lot of the lessons from martial arts out of a lot of difficult endeavors. I just don't think you get the problem-solving aspect it's such a high level. Like, some people find that in rock climbing because it's scary, and in accomplishing that and then getting through that, you learn about yourself. You learn about your ability to overcome adversity and to face your fears. But I just think that martial arts, it is a more intense version of it, because there's all this connected to combat and to the physical challenge of overcoming another human being, and it's one of our biggest fears. One of our biggest fears, other than falling off of a mountain, is being dominated by another human being, getting your ass kicked in conflict, where we have this long history of war. I mean, I was talking to...
I heard that podcast.
Jocko?
Yeah, the SEAL guy?
Yeah.
That was a great podcast.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. But we were talking about the conversation that I had with my friend Duncan Trussell, where I said that, and it was kind of a revelation for the both of us. I'm like, human history is a history of the wars. That's when we talk about human history. It's like the stuff that happened in between the wars and, some inventions, but it's mostly the wars. That's most of the history, whether it's World War I or World War II or Vietnam or, there's all these different conflicts that happen, and those are the bulk of our history. When we consider the eras in the past, when we consider the ages of the different things that happened, we consider like Genghis Khan and Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and all these different things that happened. We're considering war.
Yeah, I'll go off on a little tangent if you don't mind. It makes me think. I've been thinking about talking to my buddy over there about life and the universe and this thing called the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? And I wonder if that
The Fermi paradox being the amount of life that must be out there.
Yeah, like why haven't we been contacted yet? I consider that to be just an extraordinarily interesting question.
Yeah.
But I wonder if what you just said, that our history has been a history of war, I wonder if inherent in every species that has evolved, they've had a similar history of war, because they've been subject to different evolutionary mechanisms and pressures and such, like different atmospheres or what have you. But I wonder if it's conflict over resources, conflict over, whatever, maybe they have another gender or something. I wonder if that's just intrinsic in the nature of life.
I think it is. I think what's intrinsic in the nature of life is that sort of problem solving, and that nature wants to find the best method of achieving a goal. And so the methods that are ineffective die off. Right. And that's why 90% of the living species that have been on this planet are extinct. They no longer exist because they weren't effective enough to keep reproducing. And you can say, no, well, a lot of them because people wiped them out. People are evil and people are horrible. People are the dominant species. It's what species do. I mean, many animals have wiped out animals. There's a real issue right now with wild pigs and ground nesting birds, because wild pigs being an invasive species, they're dealing with these birds that nest on the ground that didn't have these animals hunting them, or they shouldn't even say hunting. They're eating their eggs. So that's just an ineffective way.
Yeah, adapt or die.
It's an ineffective way to take care of your eggs. Can't leave them on the ground in a place where these fucking pigs are rooting up everything and eating everything in front of them. So,
and if they go ahead.
No, it's okay.
No, if they don't adapt, then there'll be no more species.
Yes, absolutely.
They're gone.
And people say, "Oh, it's so evil, it's so awful." Would you want a world filled with only the spotted owl? No. Okay, well, if the spotted owl dies off, it's because it sucked. All right? I'm sorry. I'm not saying we should kill the spotted owl, but the motherfucker didn't make it, okay? And the other owls are still here, and eagles are still here. And by the way, you wouldn't want a world filled with all eagles either. And there's a competition between eagles and salmon. If the eagles eat all the salmon, we're going to be pissed at the eagles. Yeah. If the eagles make the salmon extinct, we're going to be like, what the fuck, eagles?
Right. It's funny. So you're talking about this, and in the back of my head, you're absolutely right. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, wow, so we're having a conversation, right? You and I are talking. Like if I started to talk about some of that stuff in class, that's when you get the whole trigger warning, safe spaces and stuff again. Like
people freak out.
But look, this is really important. I mean, you're talking about species. You're talking about survival. You're talking about taking care of the planet, and how do we weigh the concerns of the spotted owl against the loggers? I mean, you're talking about some really important things, and the recourse to I'm offended or I can't think of what makes me upset. It makes me think that maybe soon universities won't be the place. I mean, we'll have to have these discussions out of the universities, which would really it's great for you in your show, but it's terrible for the society. It's terrible for the university. It's terrible. The universities, in a sense, have ceased to have these sorts of conversations.
When you watch those children scream at that professor at Yale, and then you find out that guy was disciplined, and were they fired? Or they stepped down? They resigned?
I think they resigned. Yeah,
we're fucked. But I think liberals are eating themselves. I think the left is literally
the regressive
left.
I think there's a difference.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a good point, because liberals, in terms of social change and progress and acceptance of various different people, I think that's wonderful. It's great. But I think that this regressive left with this very rigid ideology of what you can and can't say, and the behaviors in which they engage in enforcing these things, I think it's preposterous. And I think that ultimately what's going to happen is you're not going to have these kind of structures, these places where people go, and you're going to be learning things online.
And it's going to be a lot worse before it gets better. And the hard thing is that many of your listeners are not in academia, and when we tell these stories, they think that this guy's just making this.
Well, you are in academia, so explain it from a first-person perspective.
So I give you an example.
Okay.
So I had an individual in class, and the individual is not even part of the class. Now, right in the syllabus, I put in this entire class as a trigger warning, like the whole thing, A to Z.
You had to write that?
I put it in. So here's
You
what
wrote trigger warning?
Yeah, right in the syllabus. The whole thing.
I love the fact that you even use trigger warning.
Right.
Trigger warning is so fucking stupid.
Right in the whole thing. Well, see, here's what happens, because I was actually just brought up in charges again. And if you don't do that, then, people can say, well, you didn't warn me. Well, actually, I did. I warned you the first day. It's not only is it in the syllabus, I'll say it in the syllabus, it's bold in caps in the syllabus in increased font. So everybody knows.
This entire class is a trigger warning.
Yep, the whole thing. The whole thing.
Okay.
And when I went to the dean or whatever, and he's questioning me about things, and I'm like, and I said, hey, it's in the thing. And he said, well, can you see how people could be offended by this stuff? And I'm like, of course.
People could be offended by everything.
They can be offended by anything.
We were talking about the woman who's offended because Darth Vader was black. That's
Right.
on MSNBC that Dave
Right.
Rubin tweeted today,
Right.
which is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. She's saying that Star Wars is racist because Darth Vader's black. Meanwhile, Darth Vader's not black.
Right.
They took the mask off, you dumb cunt.
Right.
It's a white guy under there.
So
fucking idiot.
I'm not going to say I can trump that, but let me give you a couple
Wow,
examples.
Luke Skywalker's his son too, and that's another white guy. You fucking idiot.
So here's one. So
God.
this woman is in the class, and I give a class at the end of the class. She says, "I've never seen so many microaggressions in." I think it was
What was the class?
Knowledge, values, and rationality. We use Sam Harris's book, The Moral Landscape, in that class, and we talk about. Well, we talk about heavy things. We talked about ISIS. We talked about cultural relativism. We talked about, is there a way to make a cross-cultural I mean, we're talking about things that, frankly, people in college should be talking about.
Right.
Because they vote, they're citizens in a democracy, and they need to engage these issues. And college professors are petrified. They're just... And in a sense, I understand that because it's a theft of one's time. My case, I don't care because I have no opportunity... I was told point blank that you'll never get promoted. You could publish 10 books from Harvard and we won't promote you. So once I found that out, I said, well, I can talk about whatever I want. So
why did they tell you that?
Well, let me I'll finish the story.
Yeah, sorry.
So it was really interesting to me. So she gets up and she said, I've never been so microaggressed. The guy's racist. And
this is someone that, again, was not even
was not even in the
participating
class.
They were
Was not
watching.
even in the class.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, like what my first was like, is this person totally insane, or did I say something that was really horrible?
What were the microaggressions that she was citing?
Oh, well, I focused in on the racist part. So
Okay.
I said, well, what did I say? What did I say? Because if I said something that was racist, I really do want to know, because I don't want to be that kind of person. So that's the belief revision thing again, right?
Right, okay.
So she said, you used the example of Star Trek in a class, and you were shocked when the woman, when she pointed to the woman, she didn't know. And she was right. I was shocked. I was almost flabbergasted that she never heard of Star Trek. Like, I understand not watching it, but she never heard of it. And then I used the example of Marilyn Manson. Right? She said that you assumed that she participated in white culture.
So that's racist?
Okay, now so for
Marilyn
her,
Manson is white culture?
yeah, okay, so
Because he's a white guy. I
So
guess.
now we can really drill down on this and think about this.
We need to
'cause-
find a forum. Black fans of Marilyn Manson. I'm sure it's out there. Go to Reddit. I'm sure Reddit has a forum.
So now we can really unpack this insanity.
Okay.
So she tells people that everybody should file a complaint against me, and I said, okay, well, let's. If you look, anybody is free to file a complaint. Do you have the number? I said, we'll put it all right on the board. You want to have a conversation with me? She said, no, you're too far gone.
You're too far gone because you like you mentioned Star Trek.
Too far. Well, I don't know. See, that's the thing. It's like the horse in Alice in Wonderland. It runs off furiously in all directions.
That's
so the whole
a
thing is
fascinating
crazy.
thing that people do, though. They say, well, I can't discuss it with you. You're too far gone.
That's a symptom. That's a symptom of safe spaces, trigger warnings,
Satan. That's
microaggression.
Satan's in your mind, Peter
That's a-
Boghossian. I cannot speak to you.
Right.
I will not get infected by your horrible ideas which come from Satan. You are too far gone, sir. Repent! Repent, Peter!
So here's. So, I mean, this
That's what
is,
she's saying.
This is just.
I mean,
Yeah,
it is very
It's
similar.
very
It
similar.
parallels.
It's very similar on the left. Right,
Yes.
to what she's saying. So here's what's interesting. So
Was she black, by the way? Because it'd be awesome if she was white.
No, she was Hispanic.
Damn it.
So one of the things that she was, or maybe not, I don't know. She said her name was like, she rolled her R's. I don't remember what it was.
How dare you, racist?
And the first
My
thing,
name is Inigo Montoya.
The first thing I said to her is, literally when she told me her name, I said, I'm sorry if I can't pronounce that.
Ricardo Montalban.
Okay, so here's what's interesting about that.
Okay.
So obviously she's been inculcated. She is incapable, and I don't want to pick on her because in a sense she's just a victim, right? She's a victim of this malicious ideology that's running across campuses now. But people like that are not capable of engaging in entertaining ideas because they have this, the university protects them. They can say they've been aggressed. They can say they've been kind of violated, if you will, like cognitively, intellectually violated. But what's really interesting about that, two things. One, she thinks that she can arbitrate everybody else's reality. So she thinks, I can understand if I say something and he's offended by it, or I say, Taekwondo and so on. But she thinks that the regressives thinks that they arbitrate people's reality and they know what other people should be offended by, which is amazing. But here's the really interesting part. I love Star Trek. I'll show you my daughter in a sec off screen. I love Star Trek. I'm a
She
big
Klingon?
No, but she's Asian.
So that has anything to do with Star Trek?
It has everything
There's
to
a
do
big
with
pause.
this. It has everything. The pause was emphasis. It has emphasis. It has everything to do with it because the woman I was shocked hadn't heard of Star Trek was Asian.
You said she was
No, who
Spanish.
hadn't heard of Star Trek.
It's a different woman?
No, yeah, there were two women. One was the woman who said she's never been so offended in her whole life.
Right.
And the other one, when
she said she hadn't heard of it because it was white culture?
So okay,
two different people you're
so I
talking
haven't,
about?
I haven't articulated.
Okay, I'm
so
confused.
There's a woman in the class. I use a Star Trek example. She hasn't heard of it. I'm
Right.
stunned. I'm like, I
Right.
can't believe it. And I use a Marilyn Manson example. She hasn't heard of it. I'm shocked. Then the other woman, the regressive,
the one who's watching.
yeah, the one
I
who's
get
watching,
it.
the regressive leftist says you're a racist. Something to that effect. I don't remember exact words.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
I was so confused. I thought you were talking about all these interactions. I thought the woman who was the regressive also hadn't heard about Star Trek.
Yeah, then that's a problem with my articulation, not your understanding.
Okay.
So just apologize. So, okay. So what was really interesting to me about that is that she identified that person on the basis of her race, not me. She was assuming she made. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're a regressive leftist, every single thing you think of is race, gender, oppression, intersectionality, which is parenthetically. I have never heard
intersectionality.
Anytime you hear
sectionality, what is that?
Anytime you hear someone use that word, you can automatically assume they're a regressive leftist, and the next thing out of their mouth will be some kind of smear campaign.
There's a hilarious video of Steven Crowder going up to people and asking them what their preferred
I saw
gender
that.
pronouns are.
I almost retweeted that, but I thought, you know what? I
You're
got
gonna get in
enough
trouble
grief right now. I got.
You get in trouble.
I know that, but that's what it is. They have really infested the highest levels of academia, and it's funny. These diversity offices, they report directly to the president. Like they are offices in search of tasks. But back to this example. So she was the one who identified the person on the basis of their race. She identified me on the basis of their race.
Of your race.
Yeah.
Right.
Because somehow there's this thing called white culture. She knows what it is. She's offended on someone else's behalf. I'm a white, cisgendered, heterosexual.
Do you use cisgendered? Use that term?
Well, we're okay.
Are you being forced to use that term? Is that real?
Okay. It's not a question of being.
How's that work?
It's
Like,
not. It's not a question of being forced to use it, but.
But that's not a real term. Like that's not in any
Dude,
dictionaries.
the whole thing
or,
is bullshit. The
Right.
whole thing is nonsense.
But cisgender is hilarious, and the idea being that you shouldn't have to say transgender because transgender should be normal. It's normal to
right.
want to be transgender. It's like it's so normal that by saying transgender, you're making it abnormal. So we
right.
should say cisgender
Right.
for people who aren't transgender, meaning if you are a male and you identify as being a male, you are a cisgendered male.
That's right.
You're fucking male. Like we're adding all. Here's the thing about like adding all this extra shit to define things that are already defined by the original word.
Yeah.
We don't need. You're doing it to prop up transgender. Like that's the idea, to make it so it's even. We'll put
Yeah.
cis
Right.
with regular gender.
Okay.
Trans with
Right. Okay, that was another great explanation. So now why do these people do this? Well, that's a long story, but one value that's responsible for that is radical egalitarianism. Everything has to be radical. Everybody has to be equal.
Yes.
Interesting, though, how, and then they have these diversity initiatives and diversity requirements. We need more faculty of color. And I actually think that can be a good thing in some circumstances. But what they mean is they mean diversity in the most narrow, bigoted kind of a way. They mean it in terms of skin color. They don't mean it in terms of ideological diversity. They're not out there hiring, Republicans and libertarians or conservatives. But the other thing that's interesting is that, I think it was on Sam's podcast with Douglas Murray. He said, we're going to be talking about pronouns are the big thing now. We're going to be talking about pronouns while these people are sneaking nukes in our cities. It is a failure to morally triage. It is a system-wide failure that's trickled down to individuals within the system to make it almost impossible for them to make discerning judgments about things. And so we have this consequence now of an entire generation of students who's being trained not only to suspend moral judgments, but to think they're better people as being a result.
And it's also beautiful that this is all coming from academia, because if you think about what a university is in academia, like a lot of people that are in academia went to college, went on to grad school, got their master's or their PhD, started teaching, never entered the real world, stayed in the sheltered environment, and now they're dictating this sort of behavior and thinking.
It's like a dojo in which everybody's training with everybody else in the dojo, right?
Exactly.
I told you, it's all martial art. The whole thing can be seen through that lens.
And then this radical ideology coming in this area and wanting to redefine reality in this area. They're not going out into the real world and experiencing the Congo and all these crazy fucked up parts of the world and understanding, like, you're dealing with like an inherent problem with the human race. Like you can't redefine it by changing pronouns and cisgender.
It really is the most insidious form of cultural myopia. Like, they think they have latched onto some timeless truth. They're just making shit up. They think they've latched onto some universal truth about reality, and now they have this moral and I think that the underlying moral impulses that they have are pretty good ones. You don't treat people differently on the basis of their race and gender. You be basically a cool person. You don't be a dick, in other words. I think that those are
they're being
very
a
laudable.
dick and enforcing it. They're not enforcing it with kindness and compassion and understanding and trying to promote this like positive thing. No, they're shaming and doxing and attacking.
So that's the other piece that we need to understand here. The other piece is the tactics and the techniques, and these people have really done a number on me, or they've attempted to. They mistake me for someone who gives a shit. I really don't care. But the other thing is, these people are just the most mean-spirited, nasty, vituperative.
Vituperative? Damn. You ever heard that one? No.
What's that word? Google that.
How do you spell it?
Vituperative. Vituperative. It means like, a nasty name calling son of a bitch.
I'm going to call someone that one day. Wow, vituperative. I like it.
There you go. Bitter reviews. There you go.
Ooh, I like it. That's a good one. Bitter, abusive, vituperative fuck. I like it.
But these people are also characterized by the strategies they use when they are engaging people. The smear tactics, if you say anything, if you question or you challenge, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe. But what that does is that shuts down the conversation. That's the end of the conversation. So they have marginalized, it really is, not only have they marginalized you, it's this rise of the victim culture. Like victims are esteemed now. Everyone wants to be a victim.
I think I can find parallels when I was talking about, again, with martial arts, is that like the dojo to me was sacred because this was something that was transforming me and changing me from a loser to someone who had like a possible outcome that was positive. I had potential. I had a path out. I think a lot of these people, they come from environments where maybe their parents were fucked up or racist or dumb, or they didn't like their life, or
they've been raped or some kind of physical trauma.
Yes, that's a good point. Had horrible experiences with bad people, or maybe abused in high school, bullied, fucked with, and now they've found some culture where they're being not just accepted, but it's invigorating to them. Like, and then we're gonna change this world, and we're gonna make things awesome for people, and we're gonna ask people what their preferred gender pronouns are. This is so important. We really need to get on this. And they're living in this environment, and again, you're dealing with like really young people, like I was when I was young, and I was looking at this stage of my life as this transformative journey that I was on, and I was wholeheartedly dedicated to it. Maybe that's what they're doing. This is their transformative journey.
Yeah, I think that's right. But
they're imposing it on others.
Yeah, they're imposing it. They're using the mechanisms of the university to impose those things. I think that's right. But the very things that we need, reason and rationality, are liberatory. They can liberate us. They can emancipate us. Again, jiu-jitsu is like that. You can test ideas. You can, it's like, it's a son of a bitch to have a guy. I had a guy on me, he's like 300 pounds, and he's like knee riding me and then skull riding me. I mean, it's just not a very pleasant experience.
Those both sound very gay. Knee riding and skull riding.
That's a microaggression.
It is a microaggression. So I wanted to get back to that protest, because I don't think we completely finished it.
I was going to finish the thought. That's okay.
Go ahead,
Give me which protest?
This woman that was saying all this stuff about you, that you're racist and that you're like.
Yeah. Okay. So I used the word hurtful before. So one of the reasons that's really hurtful to me is because my daughter's Asian, right? And now is the age of Twitter and.
That's like saying I'm not racist. I have black friends.
No, it's different.
I'm kidding.
I know you're kidding, but just think about it for a second. Like my daughter grows up, and this person in my class said, he's like hates Asians or whatever.
Right.
I wasn't even thinking of Asians. I was like a guy who likes Star Trek, right? So those things tend to have a life of their own, and then it's like, Bogosian, he's the guy who hates Asians, right? He's the guy, whereas, no, I'm just the guy who, and this is the earlier point I was going to make, the very thing that these regressives, one of the things that they don't understand, perhaps the most important, is that reason is liberatory. We can emancipate ourselves through reason and rationality. But the only way to do that, the way that reason acts as a lubricant, is in social discourse. Like, we need to be able to have conversations. It's non-negotiable. Free speech is not a negotiation.
I 100% agree.
It is pure. And so these people, they want to disinvite people if they don't agree with them, as opposed to having, an alternative speaker for their point of view, or debate. I'm not a fan of debates, but or debate. But what they want to do is they want to shut down the discourse. But let's take that at a deeper level and take a look at that. Part of the problem with that is that I firmly believe, and I think I have evidence for this, overwhelming evidence actually, this is a long pedigree in Western intellectual thought. We can derive our values. We can sit down and I can talk to you, and we can figure out, looking at the black statue there, or the Hendrix there, we can figure out why we shouldn't discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color. But the only way that we can do that, it doesn't come from a wand, is that you need to be able to ask questions, right? So we can figure things out in discourse, in dialogue. That's how we figure things out. Mm-hmm. And these people want to shut down discourse. But if they do that, then they become their own enemies. They're the worst type of ideologue, because they have beliefs, but they haven't derived those beliefs. So then those beliefs are then sacred. Right?
Yes.
And the only way they're taking away the one thing that we need to figure stuff out. It's like in jiu-jitsu, they're taking away the resisting opponent. In this case, they're taking away the dialectic, the dialogue, mm-hmm. free speech, open inquiry, the ability to say things on campuses without being smeared as a racist or a homophobe or a bigot.
Right. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. You couldn't be more right about that aspect of this whole dilemma, that they are trying to stop the debate, because I think part of them knows what they're doing is ridiculous. Just like the Qigong master that wants to shoot you across the room.
That's the question.
They kind of know. They've got to know. They've seen the UFC.
That's the question, right? So that is what I've really been thinking about. Do they know that their ideologies are bankrupt? Do they know? I mean, and again, I'm thinking about guys at the top like Reza Aslan, Glenn Greenwald, Cenk from the Young Turks. Like, when you have to make shit up and lie, it makes me think that you're not genuine about your beliefs, that you're not authentic. Like I just mentioned to someone the other day, I have no problem talking to someone who tells me with total sincerity, hey, you know what? I believe there was a talking snake. Like I can have a conversation with that guy. He's sincere. That woman, that person's sincere. They're saying this is what I believe. But the regressives, you can't. It's almost impossible. The one thing you need, you can't have a conversation because if you ask a question, you're smeared. You become a whole smear campaign. So, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating on an individual level. But then when they have institutional support of this stuff, then when they have woven their tentacles into academia, into very high positions, and it's across the United States, Western Europe. And again, remember, there is a hierarchy of things you can't talk about. There is, and if you want to figure something, if you can figure out the relationship, I mean, this would be epic. You figure out why, I love my freedom of language with you here on the show. You figure out why feminists are in bed with Islamists, and then we got something. Because this, to me, is one of the most bizarre, fascinating, disturbing, grotesque. I mean, if there were ever a group who actively, it's even worse than the former Baltic states and the Soviet Union, who the only military alliance in history, their primary objective was to attack themselves. This is even worse than that. I mean, these people, you could not possibly find a group of people who are more antithetical than the most rudimentary feminist values than the Islamists. It is not possible. Never has it existed. But yet these people are in bed with each other. And it happens over and over again. I mean, this whole situation where you're laughing.
It's awesome.
It's
true.
It's the poetry of the bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's some bizarre folly. It's very strange. It's very strange, but they're brown. And you can't say anything bad about brown people.
That's part
but you
of it.
can openly mock Christians.
Yeah, that's right. You can mock Christians. There's something about a skin color that trumps other things. Think about that for a second. These people, the only people who care, this isn't my line, I read this somewhere, but the only people who care about race are racists and regressive leftists. These people are the regressive left really are the new racists. They're really looking at everything in terms of race.
And sex. And I think there's a lot of sexism.
And sex.
There's a lot of
Sexism
in the regressive left because they don't really like men. And there's a lot of anti-masculine ideology that gets perpetrated on people, the point where you're thinking, like, you're supposed to be more soft-gendered. Gender is supposed to be a fluid thing. Like, you're not supposed to be overtly masculine. That's nonsense. How come you can be overtly feminine once you become transgender? How come you, if a woman wants to wear, like, a push-up bra or have her tits poking out and a short skirt and high heels and a lot of makeup and do her hair up, that girl's giving into the patriarchy. But if a transgender does it, you go, girl. Yeah. If a transgender man all of a sudden adopts those traditionally feminine views.
It's hypocrisy, but it's even worse than hypocrisy. Because if it just stopped there, it would be something. But it's this idea that these people, they think that they can dictate to other people how they should live.
Yeah, when you see a guy who's a power lifter, okay, some big fucking giant, like, you know that Game of Thrones?
Oh, the mountain guy.
Yeah, the mountain guy. Yeah. I met that guy. I didn't say hi to him. I saw him. He was at the UFC this past weekend. He's a fucking gigantic man. Yeah. He's huge.
He has a cool thing with Conor McGregor, too.
Yeah, it's awesome. He obviously likes being fucking huge. Yeah. He enjoys picking shit up and moving it around. He enjoys breaking records. What do I give a fuck? Why would I care? He seems like a nice guy. Like, the idea that this...
And even if he's an asshole.
Well, here's the thing, but he doesn't seem to be. And my point is, like, there's no... He's not doing anything terrible. Like, but you would look at that and decide that this person living their life in this way is negative, that he's masculine and he's a part of the problem and rape culture and all this shit. Yeah. He's just picking big shit up and moving it around and flexing. Like, who gives a fuck?
The most innocuous thing, right, that one could do.
But why is it because he's overtly masculine. Right. Why is that bad? Like, what if he just put the same amount of energy into swimming,
right.
and this guy just liked to swim across the fucking ocean?
Right.
Would you freak out about that? Right. No, it's like it's this feeling that this guy is becoming this thing that
right.
you find oppressive, even if he's not doing anything.
Yeah. So they're ideologues. We got that, and they subscribe to ideas that are just not in accordance with reality. And I think, and I'm not using the term regressive here, I think liberals in general tend to believe that if we can change social systems somehow, and I think that there's a lot of truth in this. Steven Pinker kind of, in The Blank Slate, deconstruct some of these ideas, but liberals kind of think if you could only change the institutions in society, then things would by definition be more fair and more equal. We're all born blank slates, and it's all of these disparities and inequalities come about as a result of problems within the system, inequalities within the system. And unless you're really an ideologue on the right, you would be hard pressed to say, why shouldn't we try to do our best to create systems of justice that are more fair? I'm a big fan of John Rawls.
Absolutely.
But, any reasonable person would say that. But these people, they don't believe in differences. They think that they're the differences between men and women are not biological. They think that they're cultural artifacts. They think that, and I don't know if you want to get in the whole race thing, but the race thing is another thing, but they think that race is only skin deep. It's a social construct, rather than saying, well, why do Jewish women get Tay-Sachs syndrome? Why do black people get more sickle cell anemia? But again, I notice my hesitancy in discussing these things because I know that anytime you bring this up, this is an opportunity for people to smear you, tell you you're a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, and it's also the pinnacle of identity politics, where the things that I say are discredited, or they look at me because I'm situated in the body that I am, for the sexuality I had no choice over whatsoever, and they use that as an opportunity to discredit my speech. I mean, the whole thing is just, it is literally, if you could say, well, let's make a list of all the things that we can write down to make it impossible to solve our problems. These people, they have the list. I mean, they have the gold standard for the list.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, I think one of the most important aspects of this is what you said about silencing debate, and that debate and discussion is the only way we figure things out. And I don't know, I met you today. I know you because of your work. I know you because of your associations with friends of mine like Sam Harris. But I don't know your thinking until I talk to you. And when I talk to you, I go, right. Oh, okay, I see how he sees that, or he sees things in a different way. And it's hard for people to do that because we have this rigid set of ideas that we have in our head, and we would like to reinforce those on everybody because it makes life simpler.
Right.
Well, if you think the way I think and I think the way you think, it's perfect.
Right. So that's when we bring jiu-jitsu in again, right? So that's why the problem is when we hang out with people who only believe like we do. It's called a filter bubble, and it's a book about it called The Big Sort. We tend to be more confident in the beliefs that we have, right? But what we should be doing is we should be going to different gyms, right? You should be going to your buddy 10th Planet. You should be going and checking out different things because you need to test these ideas to see if they work. In the same way, we should be listening to ideas. It's a problem if you're a liberal and you only listen to liberal stuff, or an atheist and you only listen. You really need to listen to, challenge, and engage yourself by opening yourself up to these experiences and starting with the possibility that you could be wrong. So if you're a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you walk into someone's school and the blue belts are routinely tapping you, you got to do some thinking.
Yeah.
You got to be honest with yourself. And it doesn't matter how much time you've put into it. It doesn't matter what your commitment is. What matters is what works.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And that is a beautiful thing about high-level problem solving in martial arts. That if it works, it works.
Right.
And it's hard to do that when it comes to ideas like compassion and justice and getting along and how you should treat people and how people should be accepted. And there's things about diversity and about equality that I think we all agree with. I mean, I think you shouldn't be judged by your sexuality or what you look like or where you were born or, fill in the blank. Nationalism seems to be kind of fucking silly to me.
Yeah.
I think you should judge people on how you behave and how you interact with each other. And like, do I enjoy talking to this person? And guess what? You might enjoy talking to me, but somebody else might fucking think I'm a moron. They might not like talking to me, and that's their prerogative too. You don't have to, just because you, like Peter Boghossian, just because you enjoy people doesn't mean I have to enjoy them. I have friends that have friends I can't fucking stand. And I'll be around like, oh Christ, why are you hanging around with this guy? He gives me headaches. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, and the older
that's okay too.
The older I get, the more I just want to spend my time with people I really want to spend, and not obligations.
Can't fix people. I've tried so fucking hard to get along with people that are unmotivated or lazy or they have constant problems in their life. They don't look at themselves objectively, and you talk to them about things that happen in their life and they have a fucking myriad of excuses. It's overwhelming. And if you have those people in your life, they will overwhelm you with their issues and you will never get anything done. And so my take is try until you can't try and then get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, and you're already doing what you're doing, and is that you're modeling those behaviors. When I was just talking to my buddy the other day, he's upset that all the aggressives are attacking him. And I just said, I'll publish everybody.
Yeah.
That's the currency in academia. Like, what do you care? Like, just publish.
And explain your thoughts in a way that will inspire debate and inspire thought. Explain your thoughts in a blog in a way where people can read it and like it and share it with friends. And that's one of the beautiful things about today is that you have this ability that's never literally unparalleled access to other human beings. It's never been like this, where you could just write something, you put it on Facebook. You could be a carpenter in Kansas and you write something beautiful on Facebook and it'll be shared across the world within minutes.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing to that. And don't treat people, if you've been treated negatively by people, don't stoop to that.
It's hard, right? It's hard for people.
Yeah. My mentor, this is somewhat of a non sequitur, but my mentor told me this really fascinating
Dalai Lama?
story. No, the Pope. No.
the one that they just got rid of, right? The child molester Pope?
He told me he's 97. He's a survivor of Buchenwald.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's a really amazing guy.
Jesus.
He's a film about his life, and he went back and liberated the same concentration camp. He told me the story about chickens that was very profound in my life. Basically, I think he was on the study. If not, then... But it doesn't make a difference. Basically, they wanted to see if they could reverse the pecking order among chickens. And there's something that's a literal pecking order, in that if you put chickens in a coop, 7 chickens, chicken 1 will peck chicken 2. Chicken 1 will peck chickens 2 through 7, but never be picked. Chicken 2 will not peck chicken 1, but will peck chicken. So the same thing all the way down. Chicken 7 gets pecked by all the chickens and pecks nobody. So they wanted to see if they could reverse the pecking order. And I think that this story has profound implications for all of life. And so what they did was they put a little collar. They put little collars on all the chickens. And when the chicken raised his head as if it was going to peck another chicken, they zapped it. Now here's the question to you. And I got it wrong when he asked me. Do you think it was easier to make chicken 1, chicken 7, or chicken 7, chicken 1?
Chicken 7, chicken 1.
See, that's what I said. That's wrong.
Really?
And here's the reasoning for that. Chicken 7 has been pecked. Thanks. Has been pecked its whole life. It's only going to get pecked. It only takes one shock, and I'll tell you another very quick story. It only takes one shock of chicken 1 to make a chicken 7 instantly.
Really?
Yeah, because it's never experienced that. That's why, for example, in the criminal justice system, harsh punishments don't work. They just don't, and that's borne out by overwhelming empirical evidence. But I think the theoretical background for that is the chicken story. That's why, he was telling me that when his son, he never yelled at his son. This is a funny story looking at you with all the tattoos. And his son wanted to get a tattoo, and he slammed his hand down, and he said, "No!" And he screamed, and his son was so shocked. It was like such a shocking thing, because he had never raised his voice. He'd always been chicken 1. He had always been. But when you really start to think about the implications of that, of what kindness will do, of why being there's your word again, vituperative, nasty, harsh to people. The best way to change moral attitudes is through rapport. The best way to help people. And if you read the Christian books, they talk about this interesting book called Tactics. And the main thing is, develop relationships with people. They're friendly, they're kind, they're trustworthy. You have communities with people. And that gets them involved in their community and thus their faith-based beliefs. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. I have some great guys I was just hanging out with the other day who do jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is also interesting, just parenthetically, because you have such a trust of the people you work out with. I mean, you have a bond. A buddy of mine is a prosecutor for the state, and you know how you have to say, hey, I know this guy? Well, he knew another guy who's also a friend of mine, and they did jiu-jitsu together, and he told the judge and the lawyer, and they said they don't have a problem with it. Neither one of those people do jiu-jitsu, right? Because there's no freaking way that I would let someone do jiu-jitsu sit on a jury with somebody else who's either the prosecutor or the defender, because those people trust each other. Because you have to trust each other when you do jiu-jitsu, or people will break your arms, they'll choke, they could kill you.
You're also a part of a very tight-knit and unusual community.
Absolutely.
And you have this bond with each other that I don't think people understand. You're practicing killing each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're practicing breaking each other's arms.
Yeah, so I think that chicken story, and I told that because often we think that the best response to be when we're being mistreated or we perceive an injustice or unfairness is to lash out. And a type of emotional maturity is just to not lash out. Maybe a really good strategy, which I've adopted, it's certainly much easier than attempting to do the emotional work of being kind and compassionate, is to just ignore people. You don't have to meet their nastiness with nastiness. You just walk away.
Well, that's a good approach if you could pull it off. Sometimes people get fucking pissed off till you're like, fuck this guy. Ah! But I think that also is what I call the battery effect, and it's also a good aspect of jiu-jitsu. I think human beings have a certain amount of energy that they store up in their body, because I think we have our bodies we have this ancient structure that's been passed on from generation to generation, thousands and thousands of years of human beings, and for the most part, up until really recently, you were constantly engaged in physical activity and conflict. And your body is designed for that. And I believe your body has a certain amount of requirements for the expenditure of energy. And when you don't meet those requirements, your battery overflows. And I think that's what road rage is, and I think that's what irrational responses. And I know personally from my own experience and my own shortcomings, when I have had irrational responses is because I have not maintained my body correctly, and I have not taken care of that battery. And then when it comes up, especially when you're someone like me, it's even more consequential because I've done it my whole life. Yeah. So my whole life has been about exploding, punching, kicking, rah, 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 just all kettlebells, rah, jiu-jitsu, rah. There's all this, rah, 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 rah. And in doing that, if I get it out of my system, I'm tranquil. Right. Everything's calm. But when I don't get out of my systems, my body's like, I think this is an opportunity to go fucking crazy. Let's do it. You got all this extra, right. You know what I mean? It's like your body's like, come on, bitch. You're like it's stored up. You've got too much juice in your battery. Yeah. And jiu-jitsu people, for the most part, are some of the most mellow, calm, and relaxed people outside of it. They also have the benefit of knowing that the average person literally has no idea how to defend themselves. We know this because we have been personally humiliated as an average person going into jiu-jitsu. And then you become a practitioner and you become fairly proficient, and then you understand your limitations, but you also understand much more deeply the limitations of the average person.
Absolutely. Now, you happen to have from my perspective, an encyclopedic knowledge of martial arts and lineages and people. In my experience, the people I've met, I'm trying to think of John Kavanaugh would be a good example. He's a very, very. Have you ever rolled with John?
No.
He's very good. He's extraordinarily good.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a super good guy. The people you meet who are just the most dangerous, deadly people, they got nothing to prove.
Yeah.
They seem to be the nicest people to me.
You ever met Marcelo Garcia?
No.
He's the sweetest of sweeties.
Yeah.
He's just like a smiling, happy assassin. Yeah. Like when you're around him, he's so nice. He's just such a nice guy. And yeah, when you're around him. My friend Eddie Bravo is the fucking nicest guy ever. Yeah. He's always nice.
Yeah, and then so I went out to a bar a little while ago, and a guy had a black belt around his waist as a belt, and he was playing pool. And I thought to myself, this guy has some issues.
Was it dangling?
Yeah, it's like you know how you tie a belt around a gi? He was tied it around his pants like that.
So like the two ends were dangling like a black belt would be. So he wanted to let everybody know that he's a black belt. You know, you just buy a black belt. That's the other thing I tell people. Like you can get a black belt from like online. You buy them and then they come and then you put it on.
Right.
Like you don't have to earn. It's not like it's like a sacred forging ground of black belts.
Or
where
you could
there's
do a
only one way
fantasy
to get
martial
it.
art. And just pay a lot of money.
But you don't even have to fucking do a fantasy martial art. You could just be a regular guy and
$5.
order a black belt. I mean, you literally can. There was a video really recently. I mean, it still does happen to this day of some guy showing up at a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. He puts on a gi. I think he had wrestling shoes on and a black belt. And he showed up at this gym and he started working out with people. And then the instructor realized immediately that this guy was not a black belt and humiliated him and punished him and tell him to take the belt off and get the fuck out of here. And he was screaming at him. But
see, that's the beauty about jiu-jitsu too, is you can't pretend.
Cannot pretend. Yeah, you can pretend in some martial arts. I mean, there's guys that invent moves that they think, like, this one of my favorite videos is these guys in Harlem. That there's not videos, there's a series of them who practice some sort of fake kung fu. And like one guy will be like, he'll throw a punch, and then the other guy will go, well, if someone does that to me, what I'm going to do is, and they don't say it like this. They say it in a very urban way, like, no, that shit ain't gonna work, because I'm gonna step over here and I'm gonna attack with a chicken wing, and then I got a monkey paw, and they invent all this stuff. I'm gonna attack your ribs from this position, and then the other guy's also in on it because they're also practicing bullshit.
Choreographed.
It's like, oh yeah, I see how that would work. I see how that would work. But what's hilarious is sometimes these guys actually have fights, and when they have fights, it becomes like two kids in a fucking schoolyard. It becomes a brawl on the ground. They wind up clawing at each other, and they can't do anything. There's no kung fu. There's no monkey paw. There's no attack the ribs with your knife point fingers and all this stupid shit. But you watch these guys do it, and me as a person who studied martial arts my whole life, I know I don't practice kung fu, but I know what is actually kung fu and what is some shit that someone's making up. They're just practicing and making things up. Well, they could go to even a kung fu dojo and try and pretend that stuff's real, and the kung fu guy would go, like, "What are you talking about? Like this, you're inventing things."
Don't you feel bad for those guys at some level?
Yes, I do. I think that a lot of those guys, if they had just found the correct path, would benefit greatly if they just found a real martial arts school.
Okay, so here's what I think part of it is. I think that they engage, and I'm really interested to hear what you think about this. I think that they engage in a willingness to self-deceive.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's mutual. It's with both people. Like they, you know,
it reinforces each other.
You see it in religion too, though. You see that in religion, and God finds a way. Yes, He does. Yeah. God does find a way. Meanwhile, they just leave and smoke crack and suck some dude's dick. People are crazy. I mean, that's what they do. They pretend. Yeah. They pretend, and they love to. One of the things that people love about Christians, like Christians love about Christians, is like, well, I'm a Christian. Well, I'm a Christian too. Right. You're saying, well, I know, yes, tribalism, and also I know that at least in the moment, you are going to engage in some very predictable behavior. You're going to engage in, you're a God-fearing Christian man, so you're going to behave like a God-fearing Christian man. And you're going to say things. I know where you're coming from. You're not some fucking weirdo Buddhist Zen dude who likes to do peyote. No, you're real clear. You know what I mean? I mean, it's real clear. You like country music? Are you a Luke Bryan fan? Me too, of course. Right. You got a pickup truck? Of course. I got a belt buckle. I got a big belt buckle too. You know, what about your boots? Look at my boots. I got cowboy boots. You know, it's like we engage in these really predictable patterns, and people find comfort in those patterns.
Yeah, and we tend to like people who are like ourselves.
Yes. It's very much a tribalism thing, and it's also very much it reinforces your own. Like if you have a lack of willingness or ability or whatever it is to question the reality that you have been shown, that you have subscribed to. If you're not willing to question it, and you find someone else who's also not willing to question it, there's some comfort in that. And if you reassure each other, there's some comfort in that.
No, that's absolutely right. And that's why it's so important for people to be honest with themselves. And how do we promote those values of people of self-honesty? I mean, how do we
this way?
I think that's exactly right.
Conversations. I think this is the way you do it. And especially conversations like this that will be heard by more than 1 million people.
Yeah.
And that's the way you do it. And I mean, I'm not saying that's what I'm doing, bro. I'm just fixing the world. But I'm saying humans talking to each other through social media, through
and I wonder,
various methods.
I'll just throw this out now. I wonder if, everyone's like, oh, what comes after postmodernism, whatever. I wonder if this comes after postmodernism. I mean, I wonder if these truth-telling conversations come after postmodernism.
Well, I certainly think there's a great benefit to talking to people and having people be honest, and even in an uncomfortable way, where when you listen to it, it makes you think, oh, like there's lights that go on in my head when I hear someone say something. Maybe they'll be vulnerable, or maybe they'll be like introspective in almost a painful way. When I hear it, there's lights that go on in my head where I go, wow, okay, I'm getting some real shit from this person, and I'll find in myself these moments that relate to what this guy's saying, and I try to see themselves from this point of view as opposed to a newscaster. When someone is, today in Los Angeles, we found out the hard way what happens when you don't obey the law. There's no reality. There's no there's no human in there. This is a strip club DJ coming up on the main stage. It's Lexus, $14 kamikazes. Order now. You know what I mean? It's like these are patterns that are not real, that people will subscribe to and adopt and then perpetrate. And they do it over and over again in the business world. Hello, Jim. How's the family? Is everything good? These patterns are like they protect you from having to be vulnerable and real. By adopting these predetermined patterns of behavior that we all are comfortable with and we all know. As a God-fearing Christian man, well, I'm a God-fearing Christian man myself, so I understand where you're coming from there, sir. Just give me a handshake right now. I know we're on the same page. That what they're doing is they're removing the possibility of vulnerability, of reality,
and authenticity.
Yes, authenticity is the perfect word.
And that makes me sad for them. It really does. It's a type of tragedy.
Will you get sad at shit that I don't get sad at?
Well, I do.
I get sad at cartoons.
Well, I don't get sad at cartoons, but I do feel the impetus to help people like that. Like, I do feel that it's important that people are laboring under beliefs about reality, like, again, fantasy-based martial arts, that just simply aren't true. And they're wasting their time. But unlike fantasy martial arts, these people vote, right? And these people affect decisions. They directly affect my life.
Yes. Yeah, especially social issues. It becomes a real problem. It becomes a real problem when you start blocking people's access to certain medical procedures and deciding what can be done based on. I mean, look at what was happening during the Bush administration when it came to stem cell research.
Right.
I mean, it was fucking shackled and stopped because they're going to sell babies. They're going to kill babies and just get the stem cells from the embryos, and it's Satan. Like, I mean, you get stem cells from skin, you fuck. And meanwhile, the rest of the world has like advanced and progressed.
The Iranians and the South Koreans, I
mean, it's just we got fucked by religious ideology, got in the way of medical innovation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think part of this is, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think part of this, to a way that we can at least dent this problem, is by promoting the value of honesty. Yeah. Because if we promote the value of honesty, then with that comes the willingness to revise people's beliefs. And we have to make it okay to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally cool with you sitting here and you talk about all these guys. I don't know all that stuff.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about this new age of information, is that it is impossible now, clearly, to know everything. No one can know everything. So it's okay to say, I don't know now. Where it used to be a sign of you were poorly motivated or poorly educated or what. I mean, I'm not very educated. I went to college for 3 years. I barely paid attention. And I only did it because I didn't want people to think I was a loser. I barely made it out of high school. But since that time, I've read a lot of shit. I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've had a lot of fascinating conversations with people. And I've accumulated some information. So am I educated? Not really, but yeah. But I'm educated on certain things about life.
I would say maybe not formally, but you're certainly educated.
But what is that, but where is formality now when you have formal education like what's going on with your school?
Great question. Not all
what is
schools,
it now?
All schools.
All schools. Yeah. What is it now? Because that's not education. You're being indoctrinated into this ridiculous ideology if you're participating in that kind of shit.
It's worse than it's anti-education.
Yes.
It's like kata.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways,
Yeah.
it is just like religion.
Yeah.
And that's what my friend Kurt Metzger was saying about these social justice warriors. He's like, no, I've seen this. I grew up in a fucking cult. I know what this is. You're telling me I can't think about it any other way, and that's bullshit.
Right.
And his reaction to it is very abrupt. He gets angry at it, and and he's not like a violent guy, but he's like, it's like, this is fucking bullshit. I know what it is. This is bullshit. You're making me think a certain way. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and in the bigger picture of things, America has been, this is a somewhat of a controversial statement, but we're not the great superpower we used to be. But the one thing that we
Speak for yourself, faggot.
the one thing we've always had is we've had strong institutions and strong universities. And now we're seeing those being undermined, at least in the humanities in general, and even to a certain extent in the sciences. And I don't know.
The sciences, really? In what way?
See, that's why I said I think, because I don't really know, because I'm not in the sciences, so I can't really speak to that. But just anecdotally from what I've heard of people, but again, I can't speak to that. I was thinking about.
But anecdotally, can you come up with specific examples? Because that's where I haven't heard it interfered with, except for the idea of promoting more women in science, and there's somehow some sexism involved in science.
Well, that's what I was thinking. So here's the problem with that. Why are there no diversity requirements with sports teams? Well,
right, like football teams.
Yeah.
How come they don't need to have a certain amount of women?
Because they want to win.
Well, also they don't want women to get killed.
Right. So
that's different because it's physical.
Okay, well, why aren't they say, well, we need so many Puerto Ricans here, or we need so many? There aren't diversity requirements. So here's a word for it: exogenous. It's like an
I know that word.
Okay, cool. So, because they want to win. In other words, they're telling you this is important to us. Mm-hmm. Anytime you impose a value on a system, that is. Winning is the value, and that's a marketplace, right? That's a competition. That's a free market. Anytime you say, well, you also need diversity, then you're making it more difficult to win. A meritocracy is like that. Like you want people in a system to have. In academia, I can tell you what those are. You need to be well published. Your works need to be cited by others. You need to have. We have all these metrics. They're pretty straightforward, and you either live up to the metrics or you don't. But now, this is why I was talking about the sciences. When you try to put people in positions who are not qualified for those positions, you undermine the meritocracy. So when you're trying to put people, if you say, well, there's not enough women here, we need to find more women. There are not enough African American. Well, enough. It's a trickier, but there are very few African Americans who study philosophy. If you're an African American with a PhD in philosophy, man, you're gold. That is awesome.
So an African American with a PhD for philosophy can kind of write their own ticket.
Yeah.
Well, it's because is that a good thing? Because they want to promote more African Americans get involved in philosophy, and then perhaps that will sort of engage more people into pursuing that. Now
this is a really interesting conversation that we should have. This is the kind of thing. At this point in academia, we have to shut down the discourse because someone's going to be offended. But I think that's an important question, because your question is basically, it's a kind of utilitarian calculus. Like, okay, let's say that we have. First of all, you have to look at the evidence. Regressives don't like evidence very much, but we have to look at the evidence. What is the evidence if there are more African Americans in philosophy? Can they mentor more African American students, et cetera? Of course, I would think that we would want that. That would be a good thing. That would be something that would be wonderful. The question is, does that mean that we would hire a candidate who would not be hired if that candidate had a different skin color?
Right.
Like, that whole thing undermines the meritocracy. But the moment that you start talking about putting a diversity requirement on, for example, my discipline, philosophy, in essence, I think what you're saying is it's not important. Your discipline isn't important, because we don't do that when the outcome really matters. We don't do that with brain surgery. We don't do that with sports teams.
Right. So we're not looking for the best candidates. What we're looking for is to bring people into these disciplines that may not have had the opportunity, and that might be bad for the overall discipline.
Yeah, it's bad for the overall institution. It's bad for the discipline. But
because you're not finding the best people. But the idea is that you're trying to promote these disciplines in places where people aren't as where it's not as common, not represented, but also they don't have the same advantages. Yeah. They don't have privileges.
So they're
they don't have good education.
Privilege is another word we talk about. So they're underrepresented. So we want more people in the discipline. As long as look, that's not bad in and of itself, but we need to have a conversation about what that means. See, part of the problem with regressives is they look at outcomes instead of opportunities. We need to construct systems to give everybody, regardless of their skin color, their ethnicity, an equal opportunity and an education of the first rate. And what we're seeing instead is systems being created to orchestrate or engineer outcomes. Produce this many black, African, whatever it is, or Hispanic, whatever it is. First of all, that's a bad way to think about it. It's a horrible way to think about it. But the other problem is meritocracy matters. We need to, if anything should be institutionalized, it should be systems that are race blind. Systems that don't, look, think about it. You could also think about it like this. Think about the black guy who is in philosophy, who's incredibly smart and qualified. I have a student of mine, Matt Hernandez. The kid is freaking genius, like truly one in a million, like much smarter than I am. He's published stuff. I mean, the kid's awesome. He's Hispanic. He's going to get his PhD in philosophy. Got a full ride, a full scholarship. The crime, the shame is that when Matt gets in, people would say, well, he just got it because he's Hispanic. No, actually, no.
Who's going to say that, though?
Well, no one's going to say it.
They're going to think it?
Well, that's the problem. The problem is that we can't have a conversation to ask people if they're thinking about it, because if they say yes, they'll be smeared as a racist.
Okay, so then how do you address the issue with inequality inside of these marginalized communities?
That's a great question. Look, this is what I think we need to do. When you look at surveys of if people, so I think that these lines are primarily on class, drawn upon class, which is something else no one wants to talk about, instead of race. It just so happens that fewer African Americans, or you can frame it the other way, more African Americans are born to poverty than white folks. That's just a fact. We can also talk about something that's really interesting about criminogenic factors or risk predictors. They're not what you think for people who would be violent criminals. They're just not what you think at all. But people try to make that a racial issue. But when you look at these systems, when you look at these school systems, for example, I just totally lost my train of thought. I started thinking about race and Jimi Hendrix's photo back there.
Oh, sorry. Well, you were talking about trying to get more addressing the issue of inequality.
Yeah. So what we need to do is, we need to start thinking about opportunities. Well, the other thing is we need to think long-term and not short-term. We need to look at the problem and be honest. And there are some structural issues with our electorate and the way that we've established politics in this country of offices of 4 years and then 8 years renewable. We need to have a longer term vision and a look at what this wants to be. Right now, we face a problem in that we're not adequately educating poor people in our country, and the majority of those happen to be black. And this is an enormous problem. This is going to come back to haunt us. But the solution to that problem is not diversity initiatives. Here's the other reason why that's bad. It's not even a Band-Aid. It's worse. It's because people then say, well, look, this philosophy department has so many minorities, things must be going well. Actually, no, they're not going well. It was an artificial solution that was put in, and the underlying structural inequality and economic disparity hasn't been addressed.
That's a great way to put it. And what about all the poor people that live in West Virginia or Kentucky? There's families have been generations and generations of coal miners. I mean, just because other white people have made it into universities and made it into certain institutions, you're being racist if you think that those people shouldn't get an equal shot at things as well.
And so the way we fix it is, again, this is John Rawls' idea, public education of the first rate. However, every time I would say that, people would say two things. They'd play identity politics. You're just white. You're saying that because you're white. That gives them, that's their ticket to discredit what I'm saying. That's why people, they use that as an excuse to not listen to your arguments. It's really, it's perverted. I mean, it's really despicable. So they use that idea as an excuse. So you've just said that. But the other thing that it does, I mean, if you really start to think about what kind of a society do we want to move to? What are the limits of our institutions? What role should the meritocracy play? Should you disrupt that if there are racial inequalities or imbalances? These are questions we have to address. People in a democracy have to address this. And you cannot have fear of talking about this because someone's going to call you a racist. You just can't. So if you want to put a proposal forward that says, or an idea, well, I don't think, hiring should be this way, you need to have that conversation. But there's one other issue, there's one other the tactic that the regressive left use, and that's the idea of privilege. They love that word, privilege. Oh, well, you don't even see your privilege. Privilege is yet another thing that's used. And look, I think the impetus for that is good. The danger here is that because these people are so nasty, so mean-spirited, and so generally insane that we discard everything that they're saying. We throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, we need to be conscious and careful that we don't do that. We need to acknowledge that they're saying some important things. They're, racial treatment of people on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, not discriminating against someone because they don't feel comfortable in a male body or female. Or a guy, Mark Fisher, I roll with, just is a gay and has this gay jiu-jitsu thing. These things are important. These things matter. These things are things that we have to talk about. And if I have privilege, I want to be conscious of that. And if I'm treating someone in a way that's unjust or if it's unkind, I want to know about that. That's not the guy I want to be, So how do we talk about these things? How do we engage these? Well, here's how you don't talk about them. You don't talk about them by constantly smearing people with privilege. You saying you have privilege. You're not. Or Portland State, my university, they had an event where minority students were could speak about all these things, but students who were, I can't remember the exact phrasing, not of color, were invited to listen. Think about that. They were invited to listen. They have institutionalized racism. That's what that is.
It is. It's certainly racism in that sense, but isn't it an opportunity for people that have been marginalized to express themselves in a platform that maybe a lot of people that have been marginalized haven't had the opportunity?
Absolutely.
Isn't there room for people of a specific race to speak about some issues that maybe they would understand intimately that you or I wouldn't because we're white folks?
There's no question at all that that's true. And you know what?
So is it bad though to have someone have the opportunity to let's allow African Americans to speak, and let's allow these white folks to listen to what they have to say, and then maybe you have another conference or maybe a debate or maybe a conversation where you allow someone to have a retort.
So the first problem with that is if you frame it in terms of an opportunity, then if I say yes, it's bad, then it'd be like I'm denying people an opportunity. So I don't think that's the best way to frame it.
Right.
Excuse me. The problem with that, I asked my buddy who's an appellate court judge, and he said he thinks it's unwise, or his son actually said this. He didn't say this. His son he clerks for some Supreme Court. I don't even know what but somebody, he is a lawyer, board certified, et cetera, or passed the bar, excuse me. Part of the problem is that if you do that, so I was amazed that was legal. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer, but he said it's actually legal. The problem is that you then need to hold, then white people or whoever, any other group can hold and say, look, blacks can't speak, basically. Yeah. So we can get in and we can talk about how great it is.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So you're right. So it's not right. So you're creating an opportunity for people who are genuine racists to undermine the whole system. But the other thing is, I think it's important. You can totally do that and say, look, we're going to have people for 2 hours speak about their experiences of oppression, I think that's great. And I think that they should do that. And I think we need to be more sensitive. And I think we need to correct any structural inequalities or remove biases that we have for people. And I'm sure I still have some. I don't know of any. I try to remove them. I'm sure I still have them. But the idea is that shouldn't people of any race then be allowed to ask people questions about those experiences? Shouldn't we then say, oh, you've had this experience of gay in jiu-jitsu again, or whatever it is, or being black in the academy, or being like, you said this, like, I don't understand. Like, explain that to me. Explain that so I'll know. So you're shutting down possibilities for people who don't understand those. That's the way we understand things. We come to understand through asking questions. Like, oh, well, why do you do the rear naked choke this? Why? Because if you don't, the guy will pull your arm off. So you put it in the back of his head.
Right.
So, like, we need environments that encourage genuine inquirers and questions. And here's the problem. So someone could say, well, what if someone goes in there and starts shouting racial epithets or horrible things? Okay.
Well, they're a bad person.
Well, they're horrible. They're a vile person.
But it should be clear to everybody. And the only way that's going to be clear to everybody is if you allow open thinking and open speech and allow people to express themselves, and you accumulate all that data and you get an understanding of what is okay and what's not okay, what's hurtful, what's not hurtful.
Yeah, and if you're constantly in an environment where you don't even, the monkey hear no evil, you can't even hear a bad idea. When someone does something legitimately horrible, what would the reaction be? Your threshold will constantly be decreasing if you're not hearing ideas. Right? If you're not hearing ideas that run contrary or, challenging, then your threshold for what you find offensive will constantly lower. So then anything will offend you.
I had Thaddeus Russell on, who's a great guy, and he teaches at Occidental. And we were talking about that issue where there was a young man and a young woman who got together and they got drunk and they had sex.
Consent,
and the girl decided that either she decided or her friends convinced her into it that she had been raped, even though she had sent him a bunch of text messages saying, are you coming over, bring condoms, told her friends I'm getting laid, LOL. And he had gotten to her. They were both intoxicated, but because he's a man, he was kicked off the campus. He was kicked out of school. They're suing. There's a big lawsuit. She stayed. They both had sex. There was no force. There was no lies. There was no one held anyone down. No one did anything against anyone's will. But they decided that he had committed sexual assault because they were both drunk and they could not consent, which is fucking insane and ready? Sexist.
Yeah, that's right.
It's sexist. And it's sexist towards men.
And
but that's something
it disempowers women.
Yes, it does. It's ridiculous because how come you are responsible for your own actions in every other realm? If you drive a car and you're drunk, you can't say, well, hey, I was drunk. I'm not responsible for plowing into that fucking school bus full of kids. You can't say that. But if you say, hey, I was drunk, I'm not responsible for my consent to have sex with this man, that's preposterous. We all know that alcohol limits your inhibitions. It lowers your inhibitions and it makes you do things that you might regret. But there's a big thing amongst people online that are trying to say this and pass it on. Regret does not equal rape. People make mistakes. We've all made mistakes. Everyone's made mistakes. And if you drink, you're going to make more mistakes. That's just a fact. But that doesn't mean that the person you made a mistake with is a fucking rapist now. They've also made a mistake. And maybe not. Maybe you guys just had sex. And maybe you're around a bunch of fucking nutty people who are trying to convince you that anytime you have sex and you're drunk, you've been raped. And there is a lot of that going on.
Yeah, right. So I was going to say that's a cultural problem. Now look at it from the view of the administrator, right? So from the view of the administrator, students, they'll ask for his job, and those guys have couch jobs, man. They have cush job, 300,000. They get parking spaces and everything. I mean, they have
parking spaces are big.
Parking spaces are huge.
Yes, the sign, Mr. Wilson.
It's a sign of
your
success.
Spot is ready. Let me sweep it. Pull in your Tesla.
Yeah. So Tesla. So those guys. So those administrator guys is a microaggression. Because,
how dare you microaggress me?
So those folks.
I prefer Z.
Yeah. Oh, which is a funny story. There's a story at US, a story at the university about this. So again, I have no problem calling somebody, he who looks like a she or whatever. You want to hear a couple quick stories? Funny stories. So I take attendance. It's a long story why I take attendance. Just run with it. So I get this very attractive young woman comes up to me at the end of class. I'm kind of discombobulated. I got all this shit in my head. And she hands me this note. And so you can get out of it if you have a jury duty, military orders, doctor's note, excuse from my boss's boss, the dean or whatever. So in that way, and just in case I'm audited, right? If I'm audited, I can say, or if I say, hey, why did this person get off of this, but I didn't, do anything, and then next thing you know, she's paying me, I'm sleeping with her. Who knows? It's just so much easier for me. So I'm reading this note, and it said, would you please excuse Mr. So-and-so from this thing, and his system is whatever it was. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, who's Mr. So-and-so? And I look and say, who I don't. I'm so. Is it a friend? I don't have any idea why she's handing me this note. She said, "Oh no, I'm Mr. So and So." And it took me a second, and it took me a moment. I had to process that. I didn't say anything about it. I'm like, "Oh, that's great." Because if I do, if people do demand something, and they'll say, "Well, look, this person gave you this is not a Mr." I'm like, "You have a problem with that?" I mean, I can pull the same regressive card that they can. You're being homophobic, you're being transphobic, or whatever it is. So people have been choosing their own pronouns, but the craziest thing that happened to a colleague of mine is he was told that, and again, I call anybody any pronoun you want. You want to be called Z, I got bigger shit to worry about.
Z-H-E-E, please.
I
want 3 E's.
I'll spell it out for you every time.
Z.
So this person wanted to be called, I can't remember what the days were, but certain days, Z, he, she, and he made a mistake. My colleague made a mistake, and all hell broke loose.
What was the mistake?
He called this
her
person
a she on the wrong
something
day?
like that, yeah. And she said, okay, don't do that again. Evidently, he did that again or something. I don't know. So now, and now.
Oh, whatever happened to people just being fucking crazy? Isn't that an option? Is that possible? I was listening to a Radio Lab podcast, and they were interviewing this guy a guy sometimes is a girl, sometimes goes back and forth, and his gender's fluid. And in the middle of the conversation, it's like, I just switched. I'm a guy now. I just switched. I just felt it. It was immediate. Like, I'm listening to this, and I'm going, well, this is a fucking idiot. Clearly. This is obviously a nutty person that has a very loose, slippery, mineral oil grip on reality. It's like, whoop, just flies right out of their fingers, and they want you to give in to this slippery reality and focus on them constantly. Now I'm a he, now I'm a she. It's another way to divert attention from anything that's going on and focus it on them and something completely trivial, like that they decide they're a female, they decide they're a male. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, and I don't even care if it's
pointless. People feel different times of the day. If you feel different sexually, if you're pansexual, or it's just you're just thinking too much and projecting.
That's right.
You're projecting that off on other people. If you really think that you become transgender, cisgender, and all, like, it switches back and forth all throughout the day, you're probably fucking crazy.
Was it you who tweeted the link about the guy who was a 6-year-old girl or 8-year-old girl?
Yes.
That's great.
He's a 52-year-old man, and he's a father, and he has decided that now he's a 6-year-old girl.
Right.
I love it. He should be a 6-year-old fox. I'm going to be a fox. No, I'm an owl. I'm an eagle. I identify with trees. I'm just going to stand here. Don't judge me.
So instead of I
have a hat with apples hanging from it. Don't disrespect. This is real.
So I think that's part of the problem with not being able to morally triage. Right?
Yeah.
It's part of the problem with not being
morally triage is a great way to describe it too. That's a great way to describe it.
So instead of saying, okay, look, this guy, whatever's going on in her life, person, this Z or whatever, fine, great, run with it. It's not worth my time.
Yeah.
If a guy wants to be a
trivial.
6-year-old girl, you go for it.
I think we have a problem with Mr. and Mrs. and all that shit. How about we just abandon it? Your name's Peter, my name's Joe. You make a fucking noise that means, it's like my issue with this whole Caitlyn Jenner thing was like, you have to call her Caitlyn now. It's a she, call her Caitlyn. I've been calling this fucking person this one noise that I make with my mouth my whole life. In the Diane Sawyer interview, he said he and he said Bruce. I'm sticking with that. You can't keep making new noises that I have to make with my face that make you feel better about yourself. Because if that's all it takes for you to feel better about yourself is people call you a new noise, that's ridiculous. If I decide tomorrow my new name is Sheila, I want everybody to call me Sheila. Well, you just laughed. That's a microaggression. How dare you?
It is a microaggression.
Why? Joe is a boring-ass fucking stupid name. And I got stuck with that boring-ass stupid name. This is not boring-ass stupid. My dad's name is Joe. My grandfather's name is Joe. My grandmother's name is Josephine. Bunch of fucking unoriginal, uncreative fucks in my family. So what? It's just a noise that you make with your face. When you say, hey, Joe, to me, and my friend Joey is right behind me, and I don't know which Joe, I have to look. Oh, no, you've microaggressed me again because I don't know which Joe you're referring to. This is a noise that you make that represents you. Who gives a shit? Who gives it? Well, there's some noises that are feminine. There's some noises that are ambiguous.
Right.
You know, like It's Pat. You remember that? Remember that fucking show where you couldn't figure out what gender she was? There's women named Shelley. There's men named Shelley. Yeah. Fuck, what do we do?
Chris
Jean.
Yeah.
There's jeans that are girls and jeans that are guys.
So,
it's so fucking confusing.
So you see how crazy that is? It is confusing, but here's what makes it worse. What makes it worse is that if you make a mistake, there's a rule to punish you.
Yes.
Like right now, you're operating freely. You have no rules. Yeah. People in academia,
try to stop that, though.
They're paranoid. They're paranoid about making a mistake. So,
of course. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, when you have a bunch of people that are hypersensitive and that are trying to enforce these ridiculous ideas on people, and they're trying to pound these things down, they're looking for these moments where they can solidify this. These moments where they could point at you. These moments, I call them green lights. I call them green lights because they might not be upset. They might not really be upset, but they have a green light to act upset.
Yeah.
And that's their battery, my overflow battery. That's their battery.
That's right.
I found one.
And they have community support because now the victim is the highest level.
Yeah, and they're all social retards.
And
that's the other part of the problem. And I say retards, like it's a politically incorrect word. Retarded means slowed.
Yeah.
And that is socially retarded to operate this way. It slows everything down. It's awkward. It's confusing. It's not necessary. What's necessary is friendship, kindness, compassion, open-mindedness.
Same page.
And those things don't exist when you are pointing fingers at people and shaming them over innocuous things.
Right.
Like you called her a she on Thursday.
Right.
You fuck, she's he on Thursday.
Right.
Like, come on,
and
man.
The other
this
thing
is nonsense.
That acts against their own interest.
Yes.
That creates adversarial relationships because then you're like, instead of like, hey, man, could you just...
They make them socially spoiled. I mean, that's what you're doing.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
All right, cool.
We just fucking hammered it out for 3 hours. I don't think we changed a goddamn thing about the world.
Was that a 3-hour thing?
Yes, we did. We just did 3 hours.
Well,
thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. If people want to find you on Twitter, it's Peter Boghossian, Boghossian. He's probably going to be fired from his job at Portland State University after this podcast. So please, open up a Patreon page and ask for requests like all those social justice freaks. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Let's do this again. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
All right. Peter Boghossian, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back at 2 p.m. with the fighter and the kid, Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub. We're going to have a UFC 194 recap. Holla. Woo.